let's get cracking. I'm very excited to have all these guests here tonight. Okay, all right. So, we have this is the small council we do Saturday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern. Thank you for being here. If you're watching us on YouTube, please like, comment, and subscribe, and consider becoming a YouTube member, hitting that join button. Yeah, we'd love to have you become a member and support this community, right? If you appreciate having these videos come out daily, then support this community, help us out. Okay, I'm going to introduce these amazing individuals, and we'll go from there. I'll start with my man, right? His name is Sneaky Debate Man. Sneaky! Thanks for coming through. Brother from across the pond, how are you doing?
Very good tonight. We've had a long interval, at least for me, since I've had a spicy religion talk, so it should be quite interesting. I'm quite looking forward to tonight, so let's get into it.
Yeah, we haven't done so in like quite a bit, actually. So very excited. Next we have Azzy, who is a regular here on the panels, right, on the circuit. Azzy came in here looking sharp, making it clear where he lands on this debate. How you doing, Azzy?
Religion makes you look good, you know. That's all I gotta say, man. It just makes you feel good, brings you peace, brings you joy, you know, gets rid of acne. So
cures erectile dysfunction. So, you know.
Exactly, bro. You still remember that joke. I appreciate that. Good to see you, Wick.
Oh, man.
Shout out to everyone on this panel. Hope we have a good conversation, a respectful conversation, and let's be as good faith as possible. New faces, good to see you guys. I'm glad to have you in the midst, and let's commune. Let's talk.
All right, thank you so much, Azzy. Very much appreciate having him around. All right, next we have Wick. All right, Wick, truly a fan favorite. Or maybe just my favorite. That's why I keep asking back. So, Wick, thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure. I always enjoy these talks and discussions. The open panel is a little bit of a different take than the closed panels, but I enjoy them both. So I'm looking forward. I think I've spoken to everyone except for PF Jung. I don't think I've spoken to you before. But everyone else, you know, I've had some good conversations with, and I'm looking forward to having another one tonight. Thank you.
Hey. All right, next, yes, PF Jung is here. I'm pronouncing that wrong. Paul. I know I'm pronouncing that wrong.
No, it's PF Jung, like Carl Jung.
Yes. That's what I thought. But
no worries.
It's a fucking J. Anyway, whatever.
I know. It could be a Y.
But thank you. Brand new individual to the community. It was recommended by a good friend of the channel. And in fact, they are the reason that we are talking about this subject. They inspired this topic. So very happy to have you around. Please tell the world about yourself.
Yes, appreciate it. Yeah, my name is Paul. I have a YouTube channel called PF Jung. I do, I guess, what would you say, sociocultural analysis, and it bleeds into politics. I do a lot of videos breaking down some of the more complex ideas of Jordan Peterson, who I know everyone on this panel and everyone watching is a huge fan of. And he focuses a lot on religion, so I'm hoping this will be an interesting conversation. So appreciate it. Yes, excellent book choice. It's my go-to gift for Christmas and birthdays.
That's unfortunate. I couldn't get my friend GSU Gambit here. He's the one who sent me that. Also a very big Jordan Peterson fan. You guys would be best pals.
Excellent.
Thank you so much. Okay, and last but not least, we have Ashley, who was here last night. Yes, last night. Popped on the panel. Did a great job. I gotta invite you back again.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, Ashley, thank you for being here. Tell the world about yourself.
Hi, I'm Ashley. I was very active in political discords like 3 years ago under the name Lux. I currently go by Lux of Legend on Twitch. I don't stream a League of Legends actually, though. I stream Black Desert Online. But yeah, if you want to find me there, I mainly do trans identity politics stuff. I'm really funny. And if you want, I can actually go get my religious prop. I have a flying spaghetti monster.
Oh, yes.
Love to see it. Love to see it.
Would you like me to go grab that real quick?
Sure, why not? Go ahead.
Right. I'm going to go get a colander.
All right. So this is fantastic. We are going to get started. Let's let me read out the topic, and we should think I'd have it in front of me, but I never fucking do. Oh, but before that, Mike Possibilities, thank you for gifting that sub to Papirius. I'm not sure, but thank you for the kind sub. Thank you. Okay, moving on. So, topic: is religion inherent to human thought? Can we truly have a secular society? What does it even look like? Would it be preferable? Or would separating humans from spirituality cause more harm than good? All right. Yeah, so we'll do opening statements on this. We'll start with my man, Sneaky Debate Man.
As many people who've heard me speak before know that I share many opinions with Prime. And one of the many opinions I share with Prime is I am a huge secularist. I'm not a fan of religion at all. I don't think there's really anything that can be achieved spiritually that can't be achieved secularly, and I would even go as far as to say that secular element actually makes it better. I think it's a more consistent value set. I think you definitely can divorce this from just like being human. I don't think spirituality is at all innate to humanity. I think we're all products of our environment. I think the vast majority of people who are religious are so because they have religious parents, they're brought up in a religious climate, or they, sort of get indoctrinated into religion one way or another. I mean, we all get indoctrinated into our own ideologies, but it tends to be very a specific way religion does it with like sort of this, I want to say faith healing, but that's not really the word, but sort of like granting meaning through faith. I think it's very easy for a lot of people to fall into that. I think it's like it can be helpful. I don't think spirituality is an entirely negative thing, but I do think secularism is the way forward, and it's a much more beneficial way of looking at society.
Okay, thank you so much. Azzy, please.
I think religion is inherent to every individual. People often unintelligently say religion is just belief in a supernatural or in a higher power. No, I think religion is just another form of culture, of traditions, beliefs, of where you are focused around, your life is focused around something, whether that be video games, whether that be tech, whether that be people, whether that be yourself. That is what religion is, and then it builds a community around that. I feel people, if they don't worship God, they worship themselves. That's just what people do, or their hobbies. I feel secularism, it's just religion cut belief in the paranormal. I believe the reason why people tend to go into secularism is because they go through this existential fear of the unknown, so they get rid of that. Death is something that people are often, that's often weighs upon their hearts and their minds, and I believe people go secular so they don't have to think about certain things. It's often proven that morality is more consistent amongst people who tend to be a part of any type of religion, and secularism is more selfish. And if you move forward from that, that's my point. I'll land the plane there.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, Wick.
Okay, so a few thoughts on this. So when we talk about religion and spirituality, we have to realize that these are not the same things. Religion is something that cultures do, that communities do together. Spirituality is very individualistic. It does not have to do with religion in any meaningful form, I think. A lot of times we equate the two, but they should not be equated. We're equating things that aren't the same. When we talk about religion in general, I do think that it is inherent in human nature. And when I say religion, I do not mean belief in God necessarily. Belief in God is not the only type of religion there is. People worship the state. People worship all sorts, their ideologies. People worship many different things. This is something that we do because we are, at heart, a communal species. We are pack animals, so to speak. And there has always been some form of religions throughout all cultures, and there always will be. Now, that said, the religion can be harmful or it can be helpful. And when we try to force our religion or force our spirituality on others, then it becomes very, very harmful and very, very dangerous. And we've seen the evidence throughout of that throughout history. But to try to eliminate religion is a fool's game. It just never will happen. I don't think it can happen. And I do not think it is necessary to improve the human condition.
Thank you so much. All right. Young, I got it right. All right. So
Yes.
please.
Yeah, well, I agree with some of what's been said. Yeah, definitely. I think from a psychological perspective, you can describe everyone as religious, and I think is it saying woo, or what should I call you?
That's
I
Azzy.
call myself saying woo.
It's
Okay,
Azzy.
but it's Azzy. Got you.
Yes.
Yes,
Ignore
yes.
him.
I'm the
Azzy.
hated figure.
Okay, you're Azzy. Okay,
You meme on
Azzy.
me constantly.
Got you.
So I'm saying
Got
woo.
you.
I'm important. I move
right.
I move us forward.
Okay,
That's why
all
I'm
right.
saying woo.
I'll stick with Azzy until you tell me otherwise. Azzy and Wick both made the point of, you can be religiously tied to an ideology if your life revolves around video games or something like that. Then that's that might as well be your religion from a psychological point of view. And I would say our culture, even like the culture we operate in, and whatever you want to call it, Western values or something like that, that has its roots in religion and Christianity specifically. But every culture has its roots in a deep religious underpinning. So the example I always go to is, the ethic that underlies like the Constitution is it was stated better in the Declaration of Independence when it was said, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal and endowed by their creator with inalienable rights. The only reason that that was held self-evident is because the people that wrote that were ensconced in a religious tradition, right? It wasn't self-evident for the whole course of history because we had slaves and emperors and all that. And it's not like that didn't exist in part, in the United States, but certainly the ethic that, we hold it self-evident that, people are endowed with value and that in principle, the highest king and the lowest peasant are equal. That's sort of the biblical metaphor that shapes our culture that we operate in. So yeah, I think I'll leave it at that for now.
Thank you so much. And Ashley.
I don't think religion is inherent to human thought. I really don't. I think that people like to do little rituals and stuff for themselves, but I would be very careful to say that that's not religion, that's more spirituality. I know for me at least, I do little rituals, quote unquote, before I go to bed. Like I'll go check on the top shelf of my closet, for instance, to make sure nobody's like lying down there. That's a belief, but I wouldn't say that I now follow the religion of person on the top of my closet, right? It's very much like just people follow these rituals, but they are not inherently religious. And I think that spirituality might be inherent. And I think that when you try and like force people to not be spiritual or religious, what you end up with is very totalitarian government. So I think that in a state, if we wanted to make like the ideal state, I think we'd have to have religion be allowed, but I think that we'd have to have checks and balances within the government to make sure that it doesn't take over the government. Because inherently any voter in a democratic society could vote for whatever reason they want. And we just need to make sure that they're voting not just solely based on their religious beliefs.
Okay. Thank you so much. Open to the panel.
So I just want to stress something really quick, that I would agree with secularism in the idea that we need to keep religion and government separate from one another. There are just too many dangers when you combine the two. We need to make a very clear distinctions here. But I do want to tell you all a story to probably illustrate, a very short story to illustrate what I mean when I say I think that religion is just an inherent thing that you can't get rid of. So I was raised in a very Mormon household, a very fundamentalist kind of household. I grew up, I went on a mission, all that. My sisters were as well. And as I've grown older, I've gone away from that. And my older sister has as well. However, the ways she thinks and the way she believes in things, now that she's very woke, very progressive, very leftist, they haven't changed. her thought patterns and her worship patterns, I would say, have not changed. They've just switched what she is worshiping. Instead of like thinking that everyone who doesn't believe in Mormonism is dumb and stupid and evil, now she thinks everyone who doesn't believe in progressivism is dumb and stupid and evil. The exact same ways of thinking. She has switched one god for another. And religion does not require a deity. Religion does not require a deity. Religion does require a devil. And so she has put a different devil, a different thing. We have studies that have come out very recently, in the last 10 years or so, I shouldn't say very recently, that show that the thing that binds people together more than anything is shared hatred of a individual or a group. People will bind, I'm sorry, I'm getting tongue-tied here. People will gather together around shared hatreds faster and more strongly than they will against shared common goods and things. It's just human nature. I don't think it's something that we can ever remove. So again, a lot of this is just people misunderstanding what religion is and thinking there has to be a god involved. There does not.
I don't think it's anything to do with like there having to be like a devil or a god or anything like this. Religions are institutions, right? That's what they are. They're like big institutions. If I like have my own like value set of beliefs, right, and they're obviously independent from other people, because nobody agrees with me on everything. But it's not a religion, then, right? Just because I think I'm right about all my positions, that doesn't mean it's a religion. That doesn't mean I like worship this or anything like that. Like what religions are, right? They're institutions, right? It's like a set of beliefs that people have got together and gone, yes, we'll enshrine these beliefs, we'll worship these beliefs, and then we'll all sort of like agree to act upon it and like enforce it. More than that, right? I mean, I understand what you're saying about like, religion requires like, we're against this, right? But I think also these institutions are very much for things as well. I think to define that like that sort of just reduces it down to like any form of like morality or ethics, right? Like any position you have could be considered like religious in that sense or like spiritual in that sense.
Well, it's reduced because it's amongst a group, like you said, it's an institution. We oftentimes take the word institution, we have to think of like a physical structure. An institution can just be a group of individuals who don't even have to be next to each other, as long as it's been practiced or believed.
But the point is, though, these individuals can then collectivize their will and like enact that, right? Like the Catholic Church, for example. And like I wouldn't say progressivism is a religion or like spiritual in any sense.
It's an
right?
institution,
like
is it not? There's a set of beliefs that they.
I agree. It's an institution, but it's not religious, right? So
Why
religions
not?
are institutions. The clear difference is one believes in a god and the other doesn't.
Again,
right? One is
this
like
is a
one
very
is inherent.
misunderstanding of what
Yeah,
religion
we're gonna need to agree
there are
on
plenty of
definitions
religious.
here.
Oh,
We don't really need to agree on if you fundamentally believe that religion is based upon some higher power, then okay, fine. I can't, we can't move your thoughts on that. But we're saying that like the higher power, like think of an idol. An idol to somebody is a higher power. Somebody worships their PlayStation as an idol. That's their higher power.
Would you say science
No,
could
I
ever
think
be
that's
a religion?
I think that's fair because it's what is the transcendent value that is guiding you. So for example, here's a specific example, we could talk about this one. Is like if you're a cocaine addict and your entire life revolves around doing cocaine and you will lie, cheat, and steal to get it, and you will act in a very dogmatic way to get to your value, then you could say from a psychological perspective that like your desire for cocaine is your religious value. And that might be a silly way of thinking about it. But I think it's more useful because it identifies the same pattern across different belief systems. So if you take like a nationalist perspective, someone who's willing to, like the obvious extreme religious example is like a jihadist who blows themselves up, a suicide bomber. But there's nationalists that do that. There are drug addicts that kill themselves and stuff, for the sake of pursuing their fundamental value. And I get I think that the issue is like that most people have is, well, if we define religion so broadly, then it just becomes kind of meaningless. Everything becomes religious. Exactly. But I would say then it becomes, well, is there a more practical reason for doing that? And I would say, and I think Wick pointed that out about people's behavior patterns are the same as like, everyone is religious because they act out, behaviors according to to a higher value that they may or may not know or may not require explicitly a belief in God. But that is, if you're interested in addressing dogma, which I think we all agree the dogmatic aspect of religion is the most dangerous part, the fundamentalist, the imposing on other people. I think we would all agree there's some positive element to it, especially like community and and whatnot. So if you're interested in addressing the dogma, I would say, well, why not define religion in such a way that encapsulates all dogma, including secular dogma like nationalism or anything, or wokeism, which I absolutely think can be described as a religion and actually is. Like John McWhorter points out, many people point out. Oh yes, it's got many of the fundamental.
I'm sorry, what is not a religion at this point? Like, what is, my teddy bear is a religion. I really like it a lot. All right, I'll do anything with my teddy bear.
Well, again,
I'm a secular Xboxist.
if you're looking at it from a psychological perspective, then you could say like, well, what's not a? It's like everyone is operating by religious principles, and it's a matter of what we're hashing those out. I think there is an element of like, look, it's just people are so used to the definition of religion, like Sneaky said, the institutions, and I think that is one part of it. But I think the two parts of religion, so to speak, are the institutionalized and the spiritual part. They coincide, and I don't think that the spiritual part is totally individualistic, because when individuals share spiritual experiences, that becomes the religious aspect to it. Okay. But I get there's resistance to it.
Oh, there will be lots of resistance to it. Let's go to Ashley first, and then we'll.
I just wanted to say, I really don't think I think that you could definitely find aspects of any belief structure where somebody is so willing to believe in it that it becomes religious. I do actually agree with that take, right? You could find people that are so nationalist that you could call that religion. But describing an entire group of people like that, an entire group of nationalists as nationalists can be religious, or for instance, wokeism is a religion. I think that that's really unfair. There's a lot of woke people that just follow what
but you could say that
are very well read and they just want equality. I don't think that necessarily is religious.
But you could say the same thing about Christians who don't take it very seriously. It's just because you are a Christian, religiously, it's well, you might not go to you might not abide by any of the tenets. It's within any religious system, you can have people that are fundamentalists all the way down to they just pay it heat of mouth. And that's true for nationalism. That's true for wokeism. That's true for Christianity. That's true for any set of rigid beliefs. And what's more, I think going looking at it from a psychological perspective is the physiological state that you are in, if you're going to go into battle with religious fervor, right? That puts you in a physiological state. But that same state can be entered in, again, if you're looking at from a nationalist perspective. So it's at a psychological level, the way that your body and your mind are acting out is the same regardless of whatever the articulated belief system is. And so that's why I think it's more useful to say, well, people are acting religiously here.
It's just simply non-theism.
Yeah,
there's plenty of religions out there that are non-theistic, including some Christian denominations.
Yeah, but they still believe in a higher power. For example, Buddhism.
Yeah,
they believe in reincarnation
or
and
the state,
the cosmic cycle.
Yeah, the state
is higher power.
Or their ideology.
But being
higher power.
Well, then there you go. It's the difference between secularism and religiosity is belief in some type of in the spiritual, in the supernatural.
Yes,
it's not just God. Because there's plenty of other things that...
I know it might not be a god in old white dude sitting on a cloud with a big beard, right? But the higher power, right?
It's an old brown dude because Jesus is brown.
Well, Confucianism, Buddhism,
there's plenty of...
but they still believe in some sort of like power, a cosmic cycle, a chain of events, some sort of meaning to the universe.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily.
They do. Buddhism does, Taoism does. They all
Taoism?
do to some.
Taoism kind of does. I mean, Taoism is something that is basically the art of it's Wu Wei is what it's called in Chinese. The art of non-resistance, going with the flow.
They still believe that there is some sort of cosmic flow, right? Some sort of
But you can be a Taoist Mormon. You can't.
I know.
Whatever.
Oh, that doesn't matter.
Many.
So then that's the point. It's beyond just
Yes, but I want to
Go ahead,
contend with
go
something that was said earlier, right? The problem with religion is not dogma, and not to get like too epistemological, but everything is dogmatic to some degree, right? Every belief
Agreed.
boils
Everything
down
is
to-
religious.
Yes.
Yeah.
Everything boils down to some point
Agreed.
of dogma, right?
Agreed.
Like the
The
specific
dogma is a consequence
you're
of the
not disagreeing with
religiosity.
us.
Oh, no,
religious
no,
aspect.
no. Let's let Spoon finish
go
your
ahead.
point.
Right, the specific problem with religion is not that it's dogmatic, because all knowledge is dogmatic, right? The problem with religion is its propensity to produce zealots, right? And you say, well, yes, every belief system can produce zealots. Absolutely true, right? You can be a zealot nationalist or a zealot fucking ANCAP, right? And you go around like bombing,
Zealot PS4, you know,
Exactly.
zealot PC
let me
elitist.
finish.
Yeah.
Let me finish. Let me finish. Right. Let me
Please, go
finish.
ahead.
Right. Right. So like Ted Kaczynski is a zealot of his own fucking belief system, right? And you could say he was like religious in that aspect, which I think is a bit reductive. But the specific issue with like spiritualized religion is its propensity to produce zealots based on the fact that they believe their morals and their beliefs are ordained to them by a higher power, and thus any action they take in pursuit of that higher power or from that higher power is just objectively correct. Whereas, say, a secular belief or a non-spiritual belief has to sort of contend with these ideas as like, am I correct, right? This doesn't come from a higher power. This comes from my own set of beliefs that I've grown throughout the world, right? And they can believe they're right, and they can believe with incredible depth that they're correct, right? But it's a much more difficult leap to make when you don't believe that you're ordained by a higher power in your belief system. And all religion, any kind of spirituality, does essentially believe in some sort of like immaterial thing, some sort of higher power, some sort of greater calling, some sort of cosmic balance or flow or meaning to the universe that sort of ordains them this belief system. And that's the problem.
We
That's
believe
not
in
true.
Wait,
but-
go ahead. You can respond.
Okay, but this is just not true. When you say things like all knowledge is dogmatic, that's not true at all. Dogma is a way of thinking, this religious way of thinking, this way of arriving at your conclusions. You can be someone who fundamentally believes in what they believe, but does not come to it from a dogmatic perspective. You do not have to come to your conclusions from a dogmatic perspective. You can use what I would call a non-religious way of thinking to arrive at that. The problem is that humans tend to, on a whole, naturally use religious ways of thinking to come to their conclusions. It's not that they think they are right because the universe says they are right, because that's just the way things are. Have you not listened to any Prime panel? You watch any YouTube channel, you listen to any public speaker out there, almost all of them will do the same thing. The moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends towards justice. These things are not what you would consider
No.
normally
So,
as
here's a problem.
they're a religious way of thinking.
Here's the problem, right? Because what you all are doing is confusing irrationality for religion, and I can understand why you would do that. It makes sense. But no. That's what Wick just did. He literally just did that, right? He was like, it's a religious way of thinking, right? They're not coming through it by rational means. Right?
That's not no. Well, that's
necessary.
I'm not talking about you. I'm talking Wick.
Fine. It is. Let me clarify then. It is necessary but not sufficient to be religious thinking to come to it by irrational means. That's not the only factor at play here.
I disagree with you. I disagree with how you define like dogma, right? A dogma, like when you say something dogmatically or you assert a dogma, right? It's saying something and merely asserting that rather than defending the position, right? And all knowledge has to get to this, right? Otherwise, it's an infinite regress.
I agree with that. There is a dogmatic statement at the base of any epistemology. I agree.
Yeah, exactly, right? So like, it's an infinite regress. I think the difference between somebody who is like spiritual or like religious is that at some point, in order to be religious, you have to say, right, this is because of God or like the cosmic order or the universe's balance or whatever it is your spirituality or religion believes in, right? Whereas I think a secular person goes, right, I accept this as true because I cannot answer any further, not because it's like the presupposed position of the universe, but because I have no further knowledge, right? And that's the difference, right? Religion is dogmatic in the sense that it accepts that at the base of the universe, the building blocks of the universe, there is some greater truth that is beyond them. Whereas a secular person says, well, I don't know what is at the foundation of the universe. I don't know what is at the core of it.
That's not
necessary. Hold on. I disagree because you earlier said, Sneaky, you said any belief system can produce zealots, right? And I would say a zealot is someone who is as committed to their belief whether or not they happen to use the rationalization that God ordained it. I think that like nationalist zealots will say, you know, what it's the purity of our country, blah blah blah, and that's this mythical idea that exists sort of in the abstract that I think is just as an abstract idea as God. Or, you know, with like wokeism, it's like, well, you know, we're fighting, you know, you know, against like oppression, something like that. It's like, well, you can define oppression in so many ways to the point where you can just use that as a dogma for it to go off the rails, which is exactly how it happened in those places where that excuse was used to go off the rails. It doesn't mean there's a valid perspective on that. Just like if you're Christian, you know, there is an element of dogma. Well, God willed that I hate gay people or whatever. It's like, okay, clearly that's a misuse. But if it's like, well, you know, I believe in, you know, loving thy neighbor as thyself, it's like that's a reasonable middle ground in between this abstract idea of God that you can get to. Just like there's a reasonable middle ground with a belief system.
But the difference is like
love thy neighbor.
Ashley,
Love thy neighbor doesn't have to be spiritual.
Ashley, and then
You can go
Azzy
first if you'd
and Spoon, and yeah, go ahead.
Go.
You can go first if you'd like.
No, okay.
Oh, okay. I was just gonna say the difference here is that like wokeism, right, and these beliefs, like I will defend wokeism because it's like this. You come to this via like you can study everything up to like, for instance, trans people, right? Because that's what I'm very knowledgeable about. With trans people, you can study everything that they're like pushing for and like study like the reasoning behind it, and there's very clear reasoning. It's equality, and why should they be equal? Well, you know, this study says that their brains are equal to like that of the gender that they identify with, right? And it's like for gay people are very normal because there's gay creatures in nature, right? All of these things are like somewhat normal, right? And our society's kind of made them not normal. So wanting to make those normal again, I think, isn't some religious thing. It's, hey, we've studied this and this makes sense.
So can I ask you just real quick? Do you think that we stand trans rights just because some study says so? I do not think I do. I stand trans rights, but not because some study says so.
Do you do it for spiritual reasons?
I do it because of the mythological belief that people should be treated equal regardless of what they are.
What is? Yeah, hold on.
Mythological means.
Why is that mythological?
Hold on. Well, what is the purely rational reason, without appealing to any higher power, why should we treat everyone equally? What is the purely rational reason for that?
I have like loads of arguments for this.
Sure.
Right? Like equality is great. I'll use one called the original position. Right. So like basically the principle of the original position is equality is in your own self-interest, right? And that's like generally we consider ourselves self-interested beings, right? So you're funnily enough, this example uses God, but let's just put that aside for now.
Yeah,
so,
I think it can't be put aside. That's our point.
Yeah.
Right, so,
you were trying to wave it away.
Go ahead.
And then you can't just
once you
hear them out. Let's hear them out.
Do you believe in survival of the fittest?
So, come on. One at a time. Spoon, finish your point.
It was my turn.
Once you hear the example, you'll see why that's not relevant. So, like you're in the state before birth, right? You haven't been born yet. Let's say your soul, or your spirit. If we're going to be talking about spirituality, right? You haven't been born yet, and you're talking to God, and God says, right, you get to create the world, right? But I'm not going to tell you anything about it, right? You're not going to know where you're going to be born, and you're not going to know who you're going to be born to. You're not going to know what kind of advantages you'll have by making yourself in any sort of an image or any kind of way, right? And God says, right, what kind of world do you want to create, right? And the obvious answer is, well, a world where everybody's
Veil
equal.
of ignorance, right?
Right? Obviously the answer is a world where everybody is equal. Because if everybody's equal, then, I'm not going to have a shot at being lesser or better. I'm going to be just as good as everybody else, right?
But
so
once
equality is in your own self-interest.
But once you're in the world,
I don't think that's anything to do with spirituality. I don't think it's anything to do with like religion.
I reject that hypothetical entirely. Once you're in the world, it's perfectly to your advantage to not have equality. If you're a king and you want to live in a feudal society, it's like you just came up with this hypothetical and then said, here, it's rational in this hypothetical. And I'm saying, well, right, which are maybe it is. That is fair. I think if you're going to craft the most fair society for everyone, you want to do it such that you don't know where you would enter that society in. I think that's reasonable. But that is not that is a like
Yeah, but
if we're
the
crafting
point,
society from over, but if you're already in a society, which is how
no,
humanity has
we
been,
don't
why
we
would
don't
it not be in
choose.
my self-interest?
Because we don't choose like the circumstances of one's birth, do we? I mean, I sound like fucking Mewtwo, right? We don't choose the circumstances of
Agreed.
one's birth,
Yes.
right? And thus, like, if children are going to be born into this world, if people are going to be born into this world, what's fair for them is a world
Right.
where they're equal, right?
But we live in the world now, so why
Yeah,
would
but
I not choose it? Why would I not choose a system in my own self? Why is it not more rational just to pursue my self-interest if it means forcing inequality on others? It's better for me.
Because the people in the future are going to have better. Another argument for equality is that the more people can contribute to society meaningfully, it means you're going to have like a better chance of having better things yourself.
But
right?
you
Some people are
framed-
disadvantaged and some people are more advantaged. Those disadvantaged
that would
people don't
require-
contribute as much.
You framed Oh, go ahead, Ezzy.
That would require the compliance of every single individual to make sure that everyone does well. I just feel like it doesn't make, there's like this naive approach to that hypothetical where it just like it gets rid of people.
Right.
Like if you're in
I
a
think
situation
we're missing the point. I think we're missing the
So
point.
what's your
right?
point?
Right, so the point is, right, there is a justification for equality, and you can critique that justification as much as you want. There's a justification.
What's the justification?
What the hypothetical, like the arguments I've given. Again, I don't want to argue.
But the hypothetical is
I know, but
is
let me
lacking
finish.
because it
Let
doesn't.
him go.
He interrupted me. I'm
You
just going
asked
back
him
and
a
forth in
question,
the
and then you
spirit of the- in
responded
the
to that
spirit of the
question.
thing. Yeah, so I'm asking him, and
Okay, well then
we're in the
let
spirit
him
of
finish.
conversation.
Okay, let him finish.
Okay,
So
let
we
him
can
finish.
okay.
Right, so like the point is my argument
You don't gotta
for
protect
equality
Sneaky. He
and
good.
why equality is good, right, is completely like it's apart from spirituality, it's apart from religion, right? I do it because I think it's like in my own self-interest, right? You can disagree or agree with like the rationality of my argument, but the point is argument is not is completely secular, right? It's completely apart from spirituality.
But
and there are many other arguments besides this, right? I don't think you need to make these arguments that boil down to spirituality or rationality.
It's a bad argument because we're disagreeing with the rationality. Plus, you phrased that hypothetical. You said if you're only talking about self-interest, it's good to push for equality. And I'm pointing out that if you were born into a position of power, it's actually in your self-interest to not push for it. So agreed, if we're in this hypothetical world, then you can have a rationalization that you just described. But otherwise, it falls apart because if you're in a position of power, it's in your self-interest to not do that.
And again,
it really comes into contrast with survival of the fittest, which is literally what, like, if we're going off a purely naturalistic, if we examine the environment, animals will work in tandem so the strongest survive and the weakest don't. So that hypothetical just falls apart at that.
No, they don't. Like animals specifically take care of like the weakest member of the pack.
Since when?
Well,
it's rare.
Yeah, I don't know about
very
that one.
rare. What are you talking about?
They don't.
Pretty sure they eat their own children. A lot of them.
To die.
Depends on the animal.
I know.
It depends on the animal, but
I know they don't have the same brutality. But like generally speaking, like animals like take care of their own animals, right? Because it's like beneficial.
Sharks eat their babies.
So then
it's
it's animals versus animals.
Yeah, but it's beneficial for the animals to have more animals like them, right? So they do.
No, it's not. It's competition for food.
So are all animals equal?
The competition for food is like the other fucking like species.
No.
So are all animals equal? No, I'm asking
Sneaky.
Sneaky. Are all animals equal? Do they work on an equal framework? Like the elephant and the lion and the tiger? Do they all act on an equal framework?
I understand they have like hierarchical structures in them, but they're like not capable of comprehending equality.
Ants will fucking fight the other ants.
Yeah.
Chimpanzees will literally go to war with each other.
I
Lions
Well,
will
these
fucking
are
kill each other
facts.
for territory. What is this
I know,
nonsense I'm
but
hearing?
they also groom each other, right? They also bring each other food, right? This is not that's not like the deal.
Yes, I think we're
I think
getting
it's
away
more
from
so
the
based on
fundamentals.
the facts.
I completely agree.
understand.
We're moving away. So look, Wick, and then Vashi has something to say.
So I just want to there's a very good book that I think everyone here should read. It's called The Hero of a Thousand Faces. It was written by Joseph Campbell, and he talks about the monomyth.
I just got that 3 days ago, by the way.
Excellent book. And he covers this. He talks about how mankind throughout its history has had this kind of monomyth, and you can kind of see it in the archetypes, the hero archetype, the hero's journey, things like that. We talk about this all throughout. This transcends our cultures. This transcends our belief. This is just how, for whatever reason, we're wired to think this way and to view these things this way. Because again, even your self-interest, that is a myth. That is a form of of spirituality belief. I understand that this is something you reject because it's not how you see it, not how you frame it.
Because it's not the
but when you go-
definition. Holy shit.
It literally is.
You're just making no, it
Well,
isn't.
it
You just
literally
keep
is.
saying these things. No, you keep asserting it, but it's not. We can look at the definition of
listen to me.
mythological, and
Don't
none of
listen
this
to me.
aligns.
Listen
And-
to the
He's,
experts who have written
you
on
gotta
this.
be
This is-
charitable.
No,
like
no,
you said.
I don't have to be
You-
charitable. Not for these
Don't
dog
listen
shit
to me.
arguments.
These
The
are not
word
my
is better
words.
than that.
The
I'm sorry, I
word
don't
is
have to
a
be charitable
little-
at all. These
the
are fucking
word is a
terrible.
little
No.
iffy.
No. Okay,
But
look,
if you
the
understand
problem
what
is
he's
that
saying-
all of you have been stretching definitions. Pick one, and you've been just stretching that definition, and so whatever you need
If you're
fits
gonna be
inside that.
critical-
Okay, hold on. No,
If you wanna be critical-
excuse me. Everything everything inside it. Everything is religion, right? And then equating religion with dogma, right? Saying that basically
Nuance
saying
said
these
that
two
everything is
are synonymous, right? And then saying, well, if this activity involves some sort of dogma, then that must be a religion. This
Prime, you're
makes
strawmanning.
no sense. No, I'm not strawmanning. I'm actually paying this.
No one
back
said
to-
everything is religion.
Oh, but yeah, I didn't say you said that. Obviously, I'm
said it
saying
like 3
that's
times.
what I'm. Excuse me. I'm saying that's exactly where your arguments lead. That everything was just name it, right? What did you say? Paul gave a series of examples,
Cocaine?
right?
Yeah,
Cocaine,
cocaine addict.
religion. Yeah. See, that's like an issue because
Well, hold on,
that's
can
not
I-
true. That's
Well, hold
like,
on. So,
I
hold
think
on. I would
every-
just say, when we're talking about the definitions of words, I agree that it's like we're taking this word and we're stretching the definition. We are changing it from a standard definition. The question is whether or not that's useful. That's the argument. And one point I would make is like the argument that let's just look at the definition and go from there. It's like, well, like a lot of people will say, well, the definition of man is this, the definition of woman is this, therefore trans rights are not valid. It's like you can't just look at here's what the definition is as such. The question is, what is the utility of changing the definition? And I think my point at least is that in order to like if we're all in principle against dogmatic belief systems in which people are trying to impose other beliefs or engaging in violence, it's helpful to understand the psychology behind that. And my point is that it is because, and as Wick pointed out, I think as biological creatures, and the fact that every human culture across time, across the globe, independent of one another, all came up with very similar ideas of religion, at least at one level. Obviously, the stories vary, but there is a fundamental pattern. Indicates that the propensity for religious thinking is biologically rooted to some degree. And understanding that and saying, hey, why would someone want to blow up themselves for, because their God told them, versus, well, if they blow themselves up for like a nationalist reason, but that's a secular thing. It's like, yes, but both are bad. We're both trying to address that level of dogma, and I think it's useful to define religion in
sorry.
that way.
Hold on. I'm going to address
No.
it. Hold on. Stop. Thank you. I'm going to talk. All right. So addressing this, right? Again, relating dogma and saying that is religion. That is not religion. And dogma is not the only problem I have religion. Like, not even close. Right? But it's what you guys have been focused on, and then relating those two things. Saying, okay, well, this is dogmatic, right? Then if we stretch that definition, then it's religious as well, right? No, I don't think it is useful. I don't think what you're doing of this language is useful. I think it muddies the water. I think it makes it more difficult to hone in on what the actual issues of religion. Why would you even want a secular society to begin with, right?
So then what?
So then saying that like, oh, well, why would a person blow themselves up, right? For all kinds of reasons, right? And religion could be very a small part of it. It could be that. It could be, yes, I'm so totally brainwashed, right, by whatever this religious belief is,
Ideology,
that I'll do
right.
that. Or it could be that, hey, these are invaders of my land, right? And
Right.
I'm going to be a freedom fighter, and I'm going to blow myself up. It could be that I am desperate, and if I do this, they'll take care of my family. So I'm going to blow myself up. There's all kinds of reasons why, and then doing what you're doing, right? Instilling, oh, this must be dogma, right? That must be the only answer. It muddies the water and makes it hard to actually understand the issues that we're dealing with.
Yeah. So what do you think the danger is? Let's say we define religion in the way that we're defining it. What do you think the danger is of doing that? How does that make it muddying the waters? Like, how does that specifically
what's dangerous
prevent
muddying the
addressing
waters?
dogma?
I'm just saying. I'm saying that, at least for the purposes of this discussion, it makes it impossible to actually hone in on what religion actually is. And
So what is religion?
What the problem is. Okay, so religion involves oftentimes a spiritual belief, right? A very, well, actually, no, let's say all the time, as some sort of spiritual belief, right? But set within a set of practices and beliefs that are oftentimes like enforced by some sort of organization, right? Doesn't have to be something as rigid.
Framework.
Institutionalized
You
framework.
said
Thank
what
you.
we said.
Thank you. That.
So what do you
So
have? What's the
institutionalized-
problem? You literally repeated
no,
what we
because
said.
because we've been doing more than that, obviously, Azzy. Because everything
What's
else,
the more? I'm
everything,
trying to get to the
everything that I've said before, like just copy and paste that argument that I just made and then put it in here, right? That's the answer. That's the answer to everything.
Yeah,
right,
but
that
your
you're asking
argument
for.
is muddying the water.
Oh yeah,
Your
great. You can repeat.
Because,
You can
no,
repeat my
I'm-
words
I'm-
without
I'm
adding
not
any of the
being- I'm not
context.
being-
Great, thank you so much.
I'm not
no,
trying
my
to
God,
be-
stop interrupting me, Azzy. Thank you.
Oh, my
Great. So anyway, Trey, right? So it's layered in an institutional framework. One of my problems with religion, right, doesn't have anything to do with the dogma. Dogma is a problem, right? But it doesn't have anything to do with that, right? It has to do with the magical thinking that is involved with it. That you
If
are
you can use the word
basing.
magical-
Holy shit, Azzy! Can you wait until I'm done? Can you wait?
What do
Is
you
it
mean?
a
Because I'm gonna be
Azzy? Azzy, please. Okay. So fuck.
You were
so,
saying the
there's a
magical thinking. is a
Magical
problem
thinking.
with it,
Thank you. Yes, the magical thinking that's layered on with it, right? That important world-changing decisions are based on the rantings of a book, right? That has no evidence, right? Instead of having basing a world around what you can prove, like what or what you can logically infer, all of those things. Instead of doing that, basing it off of these books that have a rationality in them, like they're their own logic system that is
Internally
based on well, it's not internally consistent. They're
You're
not
right, good
internally
point.
consistent.
Oftentimes it's not. Good
Yes,
point.
exactly, right. But it relies on a core of this spiritual being out there somewhere exists and cares about what's happening in the world of man, and that causes a whole list of issues. So
But what about agnosticism?
that has nothing to do with anything. I don't know what.
Well,
okay,
yeah,
let's
and
go.
Prime-
Come on,
can I just jump in?
Wick, and then
Sure.
Young.
Yeah. So I want to push back against this mischaracterization of what I'm saying. I'm not saying that every way of thinking is religious. I'm thinking that that people do this magical thinking that you talk about all the time in every single subject. They use magical thinking to arrive at their conclusions. This is something people do in every single way. Like that's
Stretch.
because this is just how
Stretch.
it's
So
not.
Prove the
stretching.
negative.
It's
So
not a
prove the
stretch.
negative. Prime. Prove the negative. Prove
It's
the
not
negative.
a stretch to say that people use magical thinking to arrive at their conclusions. How is that a stretch?
What is
Do
magical
you
thinking to you?
disagree?
What is magical thinking to you?
magical thinking?
Mythological thinking.
Non-rational thinking that they do it because
No, it's not that.
of
Nope, that's
their
not.
culture
That's not
they're
magical
in,
thinking.
because of their underlying worldview and belief structure.
That's not
They-
magical thinking.
That is
What's
magical.
That's not.
I
No,
think-
it's not. I'm telling you, it's not. That's not what I'm talking
not-
about.
I think-
You're saying magical thinking equal irrationality. I didn't say irrationality. I said magical thinking.
What's magical
think-
thinking?
Hold on, I think we're having there's two kind of roads we can go on. There's the linguistic element of it, which is let's talk about why religion should be defined this way, and then we can, I think, a more interesting perspective that Prime brought up is like the books of the, like, it requires magical thinking. It's not rational. It's not based on logic, and the danger is building thinking off of that. Right? That's the problem. Is that fair,
Yes.
Prime?
Yeah. Sure.
So then I think we can go into that, because I would say, and this goes back to what Sneaky was saying about, is it Spoon or Sneaky? Let's
It's
go. I'll
both.
go Sneaky. I'll go with the word. It's easy to remember the words. So what Sneaky was saying about, well, here is the rational, logical reason why we should all be for equality. And my point earlier about the very basis of that was rooted in a religious idea that all people are created equal. I would argue that you cannot get a moral frame. You cannot have a functional moral framework that does not appeal to some quote unquote irrational, like, fundamental faith claim, right? Like at the bottom of our framework, we have to start with, like,
Dogma.
people, a dogma of some kind. Like, people are created equal. We should treat people equally. We should fight for equality. Those things in and of themselves at the bottom are subject to like critique, and it's not like the rationality will inherently lead to that conclusion. I would say the entire course of history is basically like that, especially in religious or secular.
Even if I grant you that, that at the very core, right, there's something that you can't actually prove, right? That you simply you have to take it up, quote unquote, leap of faith, right?
Right.
There's a difference between starting there and then working from a belief system that uses evidence, right, from there, right, like that layers on evidence about the physical world, about how humans relate, right, that uses all of that, and then one, right, that says, oh yeah, this guy is a Jewish zombie, came back from the dead, can multiply fish, right, like that's a different. Those two things are different, right?
I agree, and I'll say up front, I view the Bible as a series of metaphors. Right? I don't necessarily believe that Jesus rose from the dead. I don't necessarily believe in the talking donkey and all this different stuff. And there's clearly a lot of, like you pointed out, like internal inconsistencies in the Bible. My point at religion as a whole, and not just Christianity, is going back to that idea of, like you said, if we start from this point, which we make a leap of faith on, and then logic it out, then we'll get to a functional moral system. I agree with that. But the question is, how do we decide on what that fundamental sort of faith claim is? And my point is, we all exist in a culture that we've been since birth socialized to believe in equality, believe all people are have internal value in and of themselves for whatever reason. It's like there's no rational reason why we should say, hey, everyone here is has inherent value simply by existing, because again, the course of history is, well, we don't need to do that. Some people are better than others. And so my point is, you can have very functional systems. And just one more interesting thing I'll say, and then move away from it, and leave it to everyone else, is like there is a difference between religions, obviously, but like Christianity in particular, like I have a lot of respect for, because like the separation of church and state, you can make the case that came out of the Bible, because there's a Bible verse. It's the disciples were asking Jesus, why should we pay taxes to the Roman Empire when they persecute us? And Jesus said, render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, render unto God what is God's. And so that from that rationalization emerged this idea that we shouldn't cite the Bible as like a legal text, which is not the case in Islam, right? In Islamic theocracies, the Quran is a legal document. And so when you start with these like mythological ideas, the rationalizations get built on top of them. But like the question is, well, what are those fundamental faith claim issues, and how do we arrive at them? And I would say we don't arrive at them rationally. We were sort of endowed with them on the basis of the culture we're in. And that's what I mean by religion shaping culture.
It's a Latin derivative, like ex nihilo, disambiguation, right? Where like you're coming to a conclusion without having to prove it. And I feel that there's fallacies within rationality where you either always have to prove something and you forget the theory. That's called dogmatic fallacy, and that's called naivete. Where you always dogmatic is like you can't have this belief if you can't prove it always happens. You can't have this belief because there's contrary theories to this, and there's no you can't replicate it multiple times, in succession. Those are fallacies that we have. Like, then I ask you, can you prove the sun is going to come up tomorrow? Can you prove that with facts now, here and now, that the sun is going to rise tomorrow?
You can, actually.
No, you can't.
Yeah, you can.
No, you can't.
Ashley, give it a try. Ashley, and then
okay,
Spoon.
Go ahead.
And then
Give me facts. Give me
we can actually do that.
Okay, you want
studies that the sun is going to come
the Earth orbits around the sun at a rate of 365.25 days per year, and while it's doing this, it rotates in about 24 hours, right? So the sun isn't going to actually come up. The Earth is going to move, and in our perspective, the sun is going to move into the sky.
Deal with what
that
I'm
is the
talking
rational
about.
reason of why we know that the sun's going to come up.
That's not what I'm talking about.
No,
that's not what I'm talking about.
What are you talking about?
That explains the rotation of the Earth. But that isn't.
Yeah, the sun is
because if the
but that has to do with the sun, because the sun is over there.
Well, then you missed the point. You missed the point of what I was saying. That was the point I was trying to make is there's certain things that happen inconsequential of proven facts and proven ways. It's proven like you can't always be it's theoretical and I'm
We should just
the
move on
word.
to
I'm losing the
Safi. It's
word.
not going
I'm
to help
losing the
us,
word.
as you know. It's
Well,
not gonna help us.
to his
No,
point,
but what I'm saying is you can't always be. I'm forgetting the word. It starts with an E. You can't always be. You can't always prove something through a certain method of.
Yeah.
Can't
can
always prove it through
Homology?
a method.
I build on top of that?
And then I want to go to Spoon. And then a
yeah. Well, here would be my question: is like I agree. Like we accept things as true, independent of our ability to rationally articulate them. So, for example, like I would hope we all agree that like music is a real thing. Like there is such a thing as music. It's a real thing. But we can't rationally articulate exactly at what point does a collection of sounds become music, right? Ben Shapiro tries to do it and says, well, you need rhythm and this and that, whatever. And it's like, you're a fucking loser.
Sounds dumb.
And right. And the point is that we are evolved. We are armed with intuitions on how the world is without necessarily being able to rationally articulate them, right? So no one can say at what point notes become music. And just as another example of that is in the legal system. There's a famous ruling that says about pornography is I can't define porn, but I know it when I see it. And it's like that's in law, where law is all about rationally articulating everything as precisely as possible. And that's still an accepted ruling of at what point does like art with nudity become just straight up porn or something like that. It's like we cannot rationally articulate that, even though we have an instinct for knowing it. And I would say that the religious faith claims are built upon those instincts we have like a priori, and religious stories sort of elucidate that in a very abstract way because that's the only way we know how, right? It has to be abstract because we can't put it into words all the time.
Everything can't go through an empirical analysis.
Okay.
You can't do everything through an empirical analysis.
Go ahead, Spoon, and then Wick, please.
I think there is
unless you can prove that everything can go through empirical analysis.
I think there's quite a distinct difference between a secular axiomatic belief and a religious axiomatic belief, and I described this last time, right? Like one says, well, I accept this is true because I cannot know any further, and the other says I accept this is true because this is the foundation of the universe, and it's a god or a higher power or the flow of the universe or the chi or what be it, right? There is like a very fundamental difference between a secular axiomatic belief and a religious axiomatic belief, and like the crux of religion is saying this is because like God or spirituality or like whatever like my religion believes in, right? Because that you have to say that at some point, right? At some like say if you're like a Christian, right? At some point you have to say God did it. It was God. This was God, right? I accept this is true because God did this.
Hold on,
right?
I don't subscribe to that.
Wait.
That's not true at all.
Okay. No, you have to.
In Mormonism, no, that's not true at all. Let me explain to you.
It's not true at all.
In Mormonism, there's a very famous saying. Do we say it's true because God says it's true, or does God say it's true because it is true? And the second one is usually what a lot of Christians and a lot of other faiths believe. They do not say that God says it and thus it becomes true. They say it is true, so God says it's true. And that's a fundamental belief that not all Christian religions, but many do. And this is a religious thing. This is a religious belief. This is a religious kind of fundamental thing. And let me ask you.
But how do you prove the creation?
I don't know who created the universe.
Right? Like,
Using Mormonism religion, they don't know either. They believe God does, but there is also.
There we go. That exactly demonstrates my point. Wait, thank fuck you said it.
Again, you can't let me fucking finish so I can show you how you are wrong.
Quick, finish.
I don't care.
Oh my God! Wait, please.
Okay, many do, but it is not a fundamental doctrine because again there is belief systems within that say that well maybe God is just one of many, maybe God is just like one in a line, we don't actually know, and that is something that people accept. I would challenge, like, if anyone here or anyone in the chat thinks that they are 100% rational, raise your hand. Or if they are 100% have beliefs that they can prove empirically, that every single belief they have, they can prove empirically, raise your hand.
I'm not trying to say that, right? Like I said, right, the
again,
difference.
so you have religious beliefs.
No, I don't have religious beliefs.
Mythological.
Listen,
you know, no, wait, even better. Can you prove feelings? Can you prove feelings?
Once again,
would it make you feel better if I called it mythological?
Irrationality equals religion. That's it. You just did it again. You just did it again.
Would it make you feel better if I called it mythological beliefs?
No, I think
that's what he's been saying.
I think it's irrationality. Irrationality, like the irrationality that is inherent to all belief systems, which we all agree. The point is that's not religion. The point is the way that we bring rationality out of irrationality is through religious
Oh my
appeals.
God! Please,
That's
please
religious
listen.
thought.
I'm gonna say
That's my
I'm gonna say
point
this
about
like-
the fundamental
I'm
faith
gonna-
claim,
I'm gonna
which
say this
Prime,
like-
you agreed. You said
No,
you
I'm
have to
gonna
take a leap of faith to start.
No, I'm gonna say this for like the 7th fucking time,
Yeah,
right?
you keep
Like,
saying it, but he keeps
I know
being
you're
wrong.
wrong. I know.
He keeps being wrong.
You're
You
wrong.
keep
Keep
asserting
repeating
it.
7
That's
times,
problem
but
with
you have not
arguing.
provided
You're
any
not-
evidence.
you're not
You
addressing
have not
this.
been able to
You're
convince
not
us.
So
addressing
what's
it.
the-
You're not
what's the
addressing it.
difference?
Let me
Okay.
say it.
All right.
What's the
Let me say it.
difference? Other one has-
Spoon.
Right, so again, right, a secular belief system says, right, I believe this because I cannot know any further. It's not because what I believe is true, but simply because I cannot know any further. This is the only point I have to start from, right? It's not because God said it. It's not because it is empirically true. It's because it's all I can currently know. It's my best perception of reality.
How is that not a religious claim?
Well, it's not religious, but
100%
like saying.
How is it not a faith claim?
What it is to some degree a faith claim that I can perceive the
Thank
universe
you.
to some degree, but like
Yeah.
I would say to that I think therefore
If
I
you
am,
deal with
right?
any
Oh my
type
God,
of
no,
faith
oh my
inside
God.
your
No,
rhetoric,
Azzy,
inside
you
your
don't have to
logic,
interrupt
you're
them.
dealing with religiosity.
Azzy.
Please let me finish.
Everyone's interrupting.
Oh,
each other.
you
There's
go
no-
on a whole thing. He jumped in and said one word,
I'm not- I
and then
asked
you
him a
did a whole
question.
sentence.
I asked him a question.
Oh my
Let's
God,
all
no,
act.
he's
You
gonna
gotta
ask a
relax.
question yet. Let's let him
Fine,
finish.
Let's all
relax.
act.
You gotta
Oh
Let's all
my
relax.
act a
God,
little more
you
Christian.
relax.
Let's all act a little more Christian and love our brothers. And let
Yes,
them speak.
please.
Right, so
I'm from a black church. We're not that sensitive. All right.
Right.
Come on
now.
now.
I exist to some degree, and I can to some degree perceive the world is not like faith, right? It's like a self-containing statement, right? I
Right.
think therefore I am is a self-containing statement,
Yeah.
right? Thus, I'm like me being able to perceive the world in at least some sense is not like a faith claim, right? That's self-contained, right? And that's like a secular belief. Right, a religious belief at some point, to some degree, you must say, right, God did it, or like some sort of cosmic power did it. You must do, otherwise it's just simply not like religion or spirituality, right? If I ask you, right, who created the universe, right? A secular person says, well, we believe the universe was created in a big bang, right? We don't know where that came from. That's just as far back as the knowledge we can go. We don't know if that's true. We don't know. We don't know anything more than that. We just have that as our best belief because that's the furthest back we can go, right? It's not empirically true. It's not provable, right? It's just the best belief we have to some degree, right?
But you
A
can't
religious
derive.
person-
But you
a
can't
religious-
derive a moral
you can-
framework from those.
Yes, you can. That's the point, right? Because it's the furthest back you can go. You can know
No.
that the underpinnings of reality may not be within your perception, may not be true.
What
I agree with
morality
that.
do you? But what morality do you derive from the Big Bang?
Well, I mean, like I would probably like cite Nietzsche there and say, like,
That's exactly
derive
what
our own,
Paul said.
derive-
You can't derive morality
Well,
from that framework.
Who said we have
Right,
to
it's-
derive reality from the Big Bang?
Hold on,
And,
it's
how
the-
is the Big Bang any different than saying the universe did it? You
No.
just said the universe did it. That's what you
What?
just said.
Oh my
Stevie.
God,
You
this is
said,
the most
we don't know
brain-dead
what happened,
arguments.
but the universe did it. That's what you said.
Oh,
We
not
are
brain
yeah,
dead.
we're
There's a big
getting
difference
we're
here.
getting caught
There's
in
a
the
big
weeds.
difference here,
Yeah, go
though.
ahead.
Yeah, we are.
Go ahead, Ashley, and then I actually
I
don't
was
want to move
gonna
the
say, there-
conversation for beyond these definitions because we're going to take.
I want to finish.
Okay, finish your point, and then I want to hear from Ashley. Then I just want to move on this conversation because we're going to be here forever.
I cite like Nietzsche there, right? There is no like value to anything, right? The universe is apathetic, right? We create our own value systems. That's like what like nihilism is about, like absurdism.
God.
Further than that, right? We create our own value systems and we choose to believe in them because it's simply just the best we fucking got, right?
That's
Whereas
rough.
in a secular, in a non-secular belief system, in a religious belief system, at some point you do have to say it was as from God, right? God has some sort of hand in this somehow, some way, right? There is a divine power. There is some sort of cosmic balance or, spiritual realm or whatever the fuck you want to believe, right? That's the fundamental axiomatic difference. This is the best I got. It's no other choice. And some sort of like higher power did it. That is the fundamental difference.
Okay, let's go
Problem with
as
nihilism-
Ashley,
yeah,
and then
sorry
I
about
do
that.
want to move forward with this conversation.
I was just gonna say that, like, saying that the Big Bang is just as religious as like God creating the universe. I think that these are very different. If you look at how religions say the universe was created, it just doesn't follow reality. And like when we look at how the world works, it just doesn't follow that. Now, yes, when like they said, "Oh, God created the universe 6,000 years ago," right? It might have followed their worldview then and what they could observe. But as we get more observations, I think that like saying we don't know what happened before the Big Bang, we don't even know if that's when the universe was created, but we know that's the first thing that we can see, right? I don't think that's a faith claim. I don't think that that's like a religious claim. I think that that's just an observation of this is the farthest back that we can physically see. Beyond that, we have no idea, and anything could be beyond that. And maybe there is a God beyond that created the universe, but we don't know that. And we're just saying we cannot know that.
Funny
and
how it
that's the
always goes
farthest
back
back
there.
that we can know.
Okay.
Yes.
So let's move forward with this conversation because we're gonna be here forever. Especially if fucking Wick. Oh, religion is irrational. Okay, I'm sorry. Cheap shot. No.
We can fight later, Prime. I still love
Very
you. I still love you, Prime.
Yeah.
I believe that you love me.
I
That's
do
my
love you.
rational
I
belief.
do love you. It's not rational, but like I love you. So it must be religious. So I wanted to get to the core of the actual topic, right? So we were talking about can we truly create a secular society, right? And would that be preferable, right? So like maybe talk about like what are the advantages of having a religious society rather than a secular society, right? Because and I'll start with you, Paul, right? Because again, you inspired this. You were talking about how we should incorporate it. We should like give up even trying to make that separation, and then actively incorporate religion into our society. If you could explain what you mean by that.
Yeah, well, I think I would just start from the observation that, like, when we're talking about, well, how do we make a better society? It's like, well, we have to start in the society we're in. And again, going back to that example of the culture we're in is influenced by religious principles, whether we like it or not, right? Again, going back to that, we hold these truths to be self-evident. Like, our legal system is based on the idea that we're going to start with the assumption that everyone is of equal worth and, you know, all equal before the law. And, like, as far as integrating religion goes, it's like, I do agree, and I think the problem with this debate is that it's binary, and so we're not necessarily addressing the nuance. On one extreme is like, I agree, religious dogmatism is absolutely a problem, and the idea that people want to cite the Bible as like a legal document or something like that, it's like that's not going to work. I think the way you integrate it, so to speak, is, well, it's definitely complicated, but like I do think you have to recognize the spiritual and again, we're debating about the definitions, but I'll go with the religious nature of people. And like, here's one example. I think, and this is something that like Jordan Peterson puts forward that I think is correct, is, and as well as many other people, it's like psychedelic usage is a big part of a lot of religious traditions and arguably underpins a lot of things, right? And we know that in they're doing a lot of research on psychedelics at Johns Hopkins University. And the psychedelic usage is seen to be curative. Like if you have got post-traumatic stress disorder, it reduces the symptoms of that. And so this is I don't know, maybe this is just me with my psychedelic ideas. I don't know necessarily how religious
Dr.
it is.
K, have you been listening to the discourse? Probably not. The discourse about Dr. K and using pseudoscience or religious.
Yeah,
techniques.
Ayurveda, right? Yeah.
Where he said, matter of fact, he made the claim that I'm not better than anybody else, but since I've been using these the religiosity within my psychiatry, it helps people where they've been stuck, in going to the therapist for 15 years, and then they work with me, and then they're cured in 6 months.
Right, and I made a video comparing what Dr. K does, which this could be bad or good depending on your perspective, of like to what Jordan Peterson does with explaining psychological knowledge through sort of archetypal and mythological stories and stuff like that. But my point about the psychedelics is, like, I think that we, in order to, and you could, maybe this is a secular, idea because it doesn't involve any appeal to a higher power or anything, but like, I think we should, I need to formulate this better. I'll just say it on this panel and figure it out later. I think we should like integrate psychedelic usage in sort of like clinical settings where people can enter these religious states, these mystical states or whatever, where they're, from a phenomenological perspective, the way that they're feeling is like, this is the most significant thing that's ever happened to me, which is what people who go through, God came and spoke to me or whatever. That's a very common experience that people have testimonies.
People do that all the time.
Let him finish.
Yeah, and I would just say like that's one example of maybe a secular approach to how do we integrate these mystical and religious kind of experiences in a secular society. That's a very very specific and very odd
I'm going to fight you on that later. Let's go to Spoon, Wick, Azzy. Spoon, Wick, Azzy.
I think it ties into like a point you made earlier, like a way of like religious thinking. I don't think religious thinking comes about because
I can barely hear you for some reason. Your volume dropped. Let me make adjustment maybe on my side. I don't know. Your volume dropped.
Okay.
All right, keep going.
Else hear me?
Keep going.
Okay, yeah. This goes back to a point you said earlier about like like religious thinking is innate to humanity because we came up with it all across the globe independently. I don't think it's anything to do with that, right? I think in most of these cases, religion is just being used to explain things they don't understand yet, right? Like, funny how sun worship has died out over the last few thousand years, right? Because we understand what the fucking sun is now, right? Funny how we don't think that like fucking diseases are caused by bad spirits anymore, right? It's because we fucking understand where these things come from. It's not a fucking. It's not because we come to this like weird conclusion. It's because we don't understand things. We put labels on them and we think it's like a god, right? Because that was just the easier way of thinking, right? Like human brains 10,000 years ago were simply just less developed, right? They didn't have such big fucking frontal cortexes. They couldn't conceive of these ideas, right? These things have evolved over like a long time, and we've come to notice them. And I think, like,
Right, but-
going forward with your sort of like religious thinking and how that's helpful to you, right? I think it's a much harder bullet to bite to know that the universe doesn't care about you, you are insignificant and small and it's cold out there, right? I think it's a very difficult bullet to bite. I don't think it's very easy. I think it's a gigantic hope to say, nah, there's some sort of like spiritual order, like some sort of like cosmic force that loves you, okay, buddy? Like everything is going to be all right. I think that's a much easier thing to buy. I think maybe that can help some people, right? I think that can help some people, right? If you're like really depressed and you find Jesus and that makes you feel a lot better, like great for you, buddy. But at the end of the day, I think that is just a big cope, right? I think you're going to have to bite the bullet that the universe is apathetic.
Okay,
you
so
gonna
we'll
pose
go to
any points? You're gonna be
we'll go to Wig,
inflammatory.
Azzy. I'll jump in, and then I'm gonna be responding to Paul any which way, so Paul can go next. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Go ahead, Wig.
Okay, so like when we ask the question, like, can we ever get religion and religious thinking out of society and out of things? I don't think it's possible. I think that when we look at how people think, even today, even though Sneaky is right when it comes to like sun worship has died out, they've just replaced those kind of worship, what they worship, with something else. They've replaced it for the ideology. Look at how many people were standing Putin, because their ideological framework made them refuse to see
Religion.
any other evidence and to deal with any other
Spirituality.
evidence.
They don't
This
see
is
Putin
this
as
is
a
something that's
deity.
going to happen in culture. Again, would it make you feel better? Would you make it if we replace the word religion with myth? If
No, I
that
would let you
people-
to use the word properly. Just whatever it is. Use
But
the
the
word
word
properly.
is a lot more nuanced.
Just whatever it is, use it properly.
People
We've
have
already
myths.
no.
People love
Oh my
stories. We are a storytelling people. We are a storytelling race. We will always tell each other stories. We will always make myths. And that is what I very believe the foundations of religion when it's institutionalized, or spirituality. I don't think we can separate that from man, because we will always tell each other stories, and we will always tell each other stories in a way that isn't quite rational, that appeals to feeling, because it works. This is how people think. This is how people operate. No one, not even me, believe it or not, is 100% rational. If you believe you are, you're lying to yourself.
Not even you. Oh wow, what a
Not
stretch!
even me. I
Well,
know, it's
another
crazy.
stretch to
Crazy.
make. Not even Wick. All right.
Even Wick.
Let's go, Azzy, and then I'll jump in, and then I'm Paul.
Prime, I just don't understand why you won't let us get into the nuance of definitions and the nuance of this conversation.
Are you
You want to
serious?
keep this thing stagnant.
Are you serious?
I get a lot of my I am being serious.
After your crack about the sun, right? After
That you
Ashley
can't-
calmly
you
explained
can't- you
how
can't do
how
an
the
empirical
Earth works,
analysis.
and you're like, "Oh, that's not my point."
She
What?
just said we studied the Earth and the rotation, but if
Hold on,
the
man.
clouds rise up and they cover the whole, in a certain area and they don't see the sun, technically the sun has not rose.
What?
You have a cloudy day. I know what you mean. We're being uber rational. I understand what you mean, but you're being very uncharitable. Like, I understand what he means by the mythos. When he says the mythological, I just don't understand why secular people just are so stagnant. Because
you make this
I get a lot of
any
no, hold
ideology
on.
is religious.
I
It's
love-
fucking
Sneaky,
ridiculous.
I
you,
love the
you
look of
yourself,
Paul's face.
Hold on, Sneaky, because Sneaky, you really haven't posed any utility in this conversation. In my perspective, you haven't posed any utility. Like being a speck of dust in the absence of cold space.
Yeah,
Is like,
that's
what?
pretty rough.
Why would I aspire to do anything great if my life is meaningless and I'll just be a nihilist for the rest of my life? What's the point of aspiring to anything?
Read some
I get a
absurdist
lot of
philosophy.
I listen to Mortimer J. Adler, who was one of the most influential Western American philosophers of the time, and he says religion.
And, like like
he
the
has
whole
posed
field
that.
of nihilism
Well,
is about like
if
finding
you
our own
want to
values
deal with
and
what I'm
finding our own
saying, you're gonna have
meaning.
to
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
sneaky.
listen.
I see, Bob.
Like so. If you have to come to terms, I think that religion as it has evolved over the time, because I'm listening to Lux and Sneaky, and they're bringing up very antiquated beliefs that people have evolved past a long time ago, like praising the sun, and you might as well bring up like sacrificing human beings to God. Like those are things that we have gotten past because we are very rational beings. All right. So when I say that religion and theology is a evolving, living thing, it has the ability and the capacity to evolve with cultures throughout the world. If you analyze all the cultures, all of the world, right? They all have, even though it's very different, they all have different theologies that that adapt over time.
Archetypes, yeah.
It's like there's different archetypes. So I just like. I feel that
your bubble.
secular
is becoming
secularism
more
does not.
right?
It does.
Evolved
It's
into
like
a more secular
secularism
society.
always leads to some type of existential dread, where I'm some meaningless thing in the grand scheme of things. Most of the time, if I look to suicide, it's coming from a non-religious framework. Suicide, the lack. Well, let me finish. When I analyze secular society, as societies become more secular, I can look at Rome, I can look at Greece, I can look at some aspects of Chinese history, because I feel like we're just throwing history out, but we're not really identifying any societies. So I asked my secular people, right, the ones who are pro secularism, what's a society that has shown benefits from secularism?
Okay.
Going and religion.
Actually, I'll let you go next, and then I'll go.
Yeah, but here are the
Paul.
Dark Ages. The Dark Ages, yeah, they were great ones.
I mean, if you look at like the U.S., it's getting more secular, and that is expanding the rights within it. I mean, like look at gay marriage, that was overturned, right? And you know what the reasoning
that
for
was
gay
in the
marriage?
60s because of civil rights by religious leaders.
Wait, what?
No,
Yes, that was. That's loving. That's loving
2012,
versus Virginia, which allowed
gay rights.
Loving versus Virginia, not gay rights. He said gay marriage. She brought up gay marriage, which was overturned because of Loving versus Virginia, which allowed for interracial and then it started to lead into same-sex marriage. So that was brought about by the civil rights movement, which was heavily.
You didn't let me finish my statement.
Okay.
All right, I'm just saying, there's a lot of
You didn't let me
religiosity coming from
finish my
Ashley, please.
I apologize. There's a lot of I'm hearing religiosity. I'm sorry.
No. So I'm saying that the reason that happened, the reason that same-sex marriage was like overturned and allowed in like 2012, I think it was, is because, and the reason that hadn't been allowed before that was because of words in a book 2,000 years ago, right? As the U.S. has become more secular, a lot more rights have been afforded, and that's good. Because a lot of the justifications for why these rights aren't afforded is religious, right?
Yeah, come on, Azzy.
A lot.
We can agree that those beliefs came from antiquated,
and these things are still slow to evolve.
So yeah, I don't even concede that.
Most religious family members don't believe that actually a girl, and it's only the religious ones.
It's probably because of their
They're
secular.
Stagnant. But the issue is that if you're in a religious society, right, it tends towards stagnation. I'd argue in these terms, in these social circles.
Who are the main proponents of conversion therapy, right? Who are the main proponents of cutting people's hands off when they commit a crime, right? Tell me that, Azzy. Is it
where does that happen? Where does that happen? Now, in contemporary global society,
no one is disputing there are problems with religion.
No one's disputing.
No. I'm saying specifically, like you're saying, like, secularism hasn't brought anything to us. Like, religion is not just not bringing anything to us; it's specifically holding us back. Like I said, who are the proponents against gay marriage? Who are they? Are they secular people?
But it's not religion; it's conservatism.
Oh, civil
Okay. I want to go. So I can.
Conservatives, no, not for being religious. Yeah.
I want to. Oh yeah, I want to go. Paul, I feel like I sabotage your side. I apologize.
No, no worries.
So okay. My problem with your statement a while ago, we were talking about the psychedelics. Is that one, psychedelics don't equal religion, right? People say they have a religious experience. It's how they describe it. It doesn't mean, and that means the way they're using that is that I've had this strange experience. I don't know how to describe it, and I'm in an altered state, right? An altered brain space, and I've interpreted that to be like whatever religion I happen to be in, right? Like that, like if I saw demons or angels, right? Well, yes, because you're in an altered state, and it draws upon whatever is there, right? It doesn't, like, these psychedelics don't unplant new information inside of you, right? This simply draws out whatever's there, and then people interpret that, oh, this was something religious, something from God, or maybe the devil, right? Whatever it is, that's what happens there. So no, I don't. They use in religious in religious practices, right? Certainly, but that's only because, again, it's something, a powerful experience that people can't otherwise explain, and so yeah, it goes to religion. And if that's what you're talking about, if that's how you're going to integrate religion into society, I mean, yeah, I guess I can agree with you. I mean, I want to use, I don't want to use, but like, I want society to be free with the use of drugs, right? And I think psychedelics could be actually quite helpful for therapeutic means. But if that's the extent, then I mean, okay, I don't think there's much you're asking for here.
Yeah, I agree, and that was. I should have thought of a better answer to go with that one off the bat.
No, because but better answer is prayer and meditation, which is heavily, like, scientists. Scientists study the brains of monks, and as they pray, they release.
No. It's Paul's turn, and then,
I know that's the Steelman of the psychedelics.
Paul's turn, and then Wick.
Yes, and as he makes a good point, because like, so if we talk about this, like, let's just say there's a psychedelic state, but it's a mystical state that you can reach. One way is psychedelics, another way is meditation. Another way is, people born again Christians or whatever have this sudden experience or whatever. Right. And I agree, Prime, that they can't describe it other than this language they've been armed with previously, right? Mm-hmm. But that reinforces my point that when you get to the bottom of rationality, you divert to these religious sort of like frameworks and religious ideas.
Did they get to the bottom of rationality, though? Did they actually expend all the other possible conclusions that there is, right? Or is that
that they're capable to the degree that their rationality allows for, right? It's like we all agreed, right? We're only so rational. So once you reach your limits, you're into the religious and faith landscape.
Okay. So
the margin of error.
I guess I would agree with you to the point that I would say that these people aren't armed with a skeptic framework. Right? A skeptic framework questions all of these things, right? It questions these bases, and a skeptic framework would rely on something that can be proven, right? And so, like, you're like a person, and I've heard many stories. I've heard many stories of people who've taken like mushrooms or something, right, or LSD. They've had an experience, and they say it's religious, right? That this is why I believe in God. They'll say this is the reason I went through this experience, and this is the reason. And then they'll say, well, there was some sort of demon, right? And it let me know all these things that I didn't understand before, right? And you dig into them, like, okay, first of all, how do you know this was a demon? Like, whatever this is, how do you know it's a demon? Can we actually replicate this? Can we talk to these demons, or can these spirits, whatever you're referring to, right? Can we grab information? Can we prove that whatever it is that they related to you is actually knowledge that you did not have before, right? And when you actually break it down, then the whole story falls apart. These people aren't armed with a skeptic framework, and so they rely on, well, I guess it was religion. It must have been, right? And it felt so powerful. It felt so real.
Right.
And that's what I fall back on. Does that make sense?
And I definitely, agree that you cannot make the claim that because people take psychedelics and report religious experiences, that proves religion. That's not even on the table. It's a much more complicated story than that. But the point about, forgot.
Take your time.
You were saying they aren't armed with a skeptic framework, so
they don't doubt.
So I would say something effective like, okay, like religious people who like I grew up religious, and then went through a cringe atheist phase, and then came back to the reasonable center, let's say. But like I remember going to a church camp, and they were playing music, and you've seen the videos of like religious people putting their hands up and they're crying and all that shit. And I was 12 or 13 in the moment, and I was crying. I genuinely believed like, oh, I'm in the spirit of in the presence of God or whatever. It's like that physiological state, which we can like measure to some degree. We can do neural imagery and stuff. That you can reach that state in non-psychedelic ways through religious experience. So from my perspective, again, going back to the utility, is like I think it is helpful, given that the language we use to describe those experiences are religious, and given that it's a similar physiological state to what we would consider traditional religious, states. That's why I put it in the same category. But it definitely is more complex than that.
Okay, so I'm just drilling down. Don't worry, Wick, I haven't forgotten about you.
Cool.
Yeah, so what I'm drilling down is that like you think these experiences, however you define them, are positive, right? And that we shouldn't run away.
Not always. No, you can have a bad trip. You can go straight to hell.
Fair enough. Okay, yeah. Right. That they can be valuable, right? That these experiences, and that as a society we shouldn't run away from them, and to contextualize them, it's fine to use a religious framework, right? A familiar religious framework to contextualize whatever these experiences are. But you don't necessarily, to any particular experience, apply. Say that something supernatural has happened to it. Is that
right? It's not. Well, yeah, and it kind of depends on like I've taken psychedelics in legal settings, of course. But it's like, is it supernatural? Whatever. It's like it's like is a dream a supernatural experience? It's like no, but like what happens in a dream as you describe it is literally like supernatural in some sense. If you're experiencing that, it's the experience of some flying and all that shit and all that stuff.
How else would you describe dreams?
Right, and that's that religious landscape, right? But to the point, I think this could be interesting, to the point about the skeptic framework, and this goes, nihilism I think would be a great topic, because the most cringe thing on earth besides libertarianism is nihilism. It's like, if someone is armed with a skeptic framework, right, and you say, well, that will help kind of contextualize the psychedelic experiences, like, when an experience is so powerful emotionally, it blows out your rational framework, and you have nothing to default to but these sort of irrational modes of being. And so, like, for example, if you're a nihilist and you say, hey, like, I can just tell myself my brain's on drugs and all that. It's like, take enough psychedelics, and I promise you that will not defend you from whatever you're experiencing, right? So it's not enough to, like, have a specific rational framework go into these experiences and then come away, we'll say, well, they're not this or that or whatever. It's like the experience that you have maps onto religious thinking.
So just because someone has abandoned their rational framework, their skeptical framework, doesn't mean that they've discovered some sort of truth, right? That they've gone beyond rationality, right? It could mean that they were in an altered state. They don't know how to deal with that, right? And then that's it. Rather than relying, okay, maybe my own senses aren't perfectly aligned with the world, right? Because you can have these experiences like of demons and angels or whatever, right, and be perfectly sober. But maybe taking a step back and think that my experience might not align with reality. Let me try to get evidence that doesn't rely on whatever I felt, right, and rely on that instead. That's actually quite important, right? Even when we're in a secular environment, in court, for instance, right, we can't always rely on the eyewitness, because that eyewitness can swear up and down and truly mean it that they saw this person do this thing, right? And then you check a camera, and that is absolutely not what happened, but they were telling the truth. So it doesn't mean, right?
And it's partly on me for even getting us into this weedy psychedelic territory, because like I said, like, we can't, this alone does not prove anything about religion. So it might be useful to not delve too much and just,
Okay.
Sure, try to divert it.
Let's go.
No, but that's a good point to the point, Prime. That's a good point.
Let's go, Wick, please.
I do want to take a step back for a minute. I do appreciate this talk. I'm a big fan of psychedelics when it comes to mental health and things like that. And I do think that there is a very good value in being skeptical as well. I mean, look at my channel name, Death of Certainty. I mean, that's a big thing I'm a proponent for. But I want to take a step back a little and push back against this notion that secularism good, religion bad. I think that religion has been used to cause a lot of problems throughout the world, but it's also been used to solve some. Look at the civil rights movement. That was heavily invested in religion. The appeals to religion by Martin Luther King Jr., who was very religious, and who
Malcolm
led
X.
up that movement, it
Like I
was
said.
something that was used to solve a problem. And secularism has been used to cause great harm. Let's look at all the bad science, phrenology, for example, or look at the USSR, look at the Nazi scientists and things like that, using science and secularism to quote unquote, it was bad science, I agree. It was bad science, I agree. But it's been used to push this very, very harmful, untrue narratives. Like to say that secularism good, religion bad in such a dogmatic, religious, dare I say it, way is
Of
is
course you'll say
just
it. Of course you'll say it. Sorry.
is
Go ahead,
just
please.
is just false. It shows like this is wild to me. Like I think I would fight with Paul
Secular
here with PF Young
Yeah.
on a few things. Like I don't think we agree totally on several things, but he has clearly arrived at his position in a very rational, reasonable way. And Sneak and Debate Man has arrived it in a very religious way. He's decided this is true. Nothing will sway me from this. This is what it is, despite all evidence to the contrary.
Being
It's
a-
wild.
Let's take so
It's
far. Let's take so
wild
far.
that you can't see that. And the fact that you
best,
can't
bro.
see that is further evidence of your religion. It's just wild to me. I don't get it.
Which is why I'm saying the nuance in this conversation is being like we've spent time talking about psychedelics. When you could talk about empirical studies of brain scans of monks on their brains while they're praying and meditating, and
Which
they're
are
getting
similar
the
to
same.
psychedelics.
And they're getting the. In fact, it's even
I
more
agree.
powerful than
I agree.
psychedelics. No, but you rather talk about the psychedelics.
No. I agree. I
Psychedelics
agreed
are
with
a lot
him.
easier
Hold
than
on.
meditation.
Are you going to allow
Paul
this
talked about
conversation to move
the
forward?
religious singing, right? He talked about what he was referring to is how within a religious context, right? Like so, let's use Christianity for example, right? You'll have churches and they'll have songs and hymns and they'll chant, right? And they'll have you within this community, right? You'll have this communal experience, and basically what they do, they create
Same
a
thing at
setting.
any concert.
They create a setting in which you can have these experiences, right? It puts you into this mindset where this powerful experience that he's talking about, this God mode, right, can activate, and you can do that without drugs. I
God mode, I
agree
love
with
that.
Paul when he
instance-
brings that up. So yes, and like you said, there's other ways to do it, including meditation, right? So yeah, monks do that too. I have no problem dealing with that.
But those are within the framework of a religious society. Within a secular society, there is no prayer, there is no meditation, because the utility of that is gone. Like, when do you
What
pray?
is a
Like, I'm
secular
asking the
society?
secular
That's
people,
what we have
when
to
do you?
ask.
Thank you.
What
Hold on,
is- Okay.
I'm asking you a question. I'm gonna let y'all talk. When do you find the time or the utility of prayer and meditation?
Okay, Ashley, because you hit exactly what I was going to say. Please go ahead.
I'm just trying. Sorry to not directly respond to you, but I gotta respond kind of with a longer statement, which is
No problem.
a secular society does not eradicate religion within the society. I would argue that the USSR was actually something beyond a secular society because it actively, I would actually argue it was anti-theist. It actively said you cannot be religious within the society, right? And I think that the issue is, well, yes, that is a perfectly secular society. I doubt anyone that is on this panel, at least, that is advocating for secular society would say that we should remove
Abolish
religion
religion?
from the average person.
Okay,
I
but
don't-
no one's arguing the negative either. No religious person is saying get rid of secularism.
Well, not
Of
forcibly,
course,
anyway.
but the government, right? But the government, like, trying to
government.
rule. Okay, anyway, the government
think-
trying to rule on things without using a religious framework, right? That is secularism, right?
Do you
It doesn't
think-
matter if these people in the government have religion, right?
It's because you don't need a religious framework in all things, which we have already
Alright,
conceded.
here's a
You
question-
don't.
here's a
Every
question.
aspect of life isn't religious.
Yeah,
Here's a
so our
question, right?
government shouldn't have religion in it either. So we should be
Why not?
secular.
Yeah, why would you
Christianity
not,
says the
like-
same thing. Like
Yeah, but
there was a
if religion-
separation of
if-
priests and kings in the Book of Kings, and
if-
that's in Taoism, that's in Confucianism. There's
if religion and like
we're talking
spirituality
about
has
things that we
benefits,
agree on.
if
So
religion
then,
and
yeah, we
spirituality
agree on
has
secular
benefits,
society.
why would you not
No.
include it in government? Like, why would you not want that?
Why would I not
agreed.
want
we
religion?
said separation of
Yeah.
church and state is
Yeah,
a
but
good
why?
thing.
Why?
The Christian
Yeah,
idea.
Why is that a good thing?
Because you don't need a religiosity in all aspects of life. There's no utility in religiosity other than facets of
Well,
know
yeah, but like
peace
your religion
and
is like It's like your axiomatic beliefs, it's like your fundamental belief system, right? Like,
the
why would you not
utility
want
of
that enforced
religion,
through the state?
but the utility of religion is like you said, there's a set moral framework that leads to peace, that leads to low anxiety, that leads to progressive, like there's progressivism, and I think I just butchered that
Why would you
word.
not want that part of
But
the state?
why would I not want that part of the faith? I don't think I've ever posed that statement where I don't want secularism.
Yeah, I think we're
why?
talking past each other.
Yeah, we're talking past each other.
I think you misheard me, right? So you're saying like religion has all these like benefits, right? Of like, you know, it's like it makes everybody feel better, and like, yeah, I don't know, whatever the fuck you think religion is good for, right?
Yo, y'all
like,
are crazy, bro.
Right, like, why? Why?
So says the nihilist.
It's
I'm not an nihilist.
just not. I'm an
absurdist. Okay, I'm not a nihilist.
That's worse.
Anyway, no, it's better. Anyway,
it's crazy. God bless you, bro.
Spoon.
God bless you.
Why would you not want these like benefits of religion, this like cultural power that you sort of like describe as part of the state? Why would you not want the state doing this?
Why would I not want the states?
Yeah, why would you not want the state?
Tenets.
If you think the church is like really good, why would you not want the state to like give loads of money to the church?
Because there's an inherent understanding. Like we said this in the very beginning in our intros. There's an inherent understanding that institutions do not have to be the physical building. They're made up of the individuals, regardless of whether or not they are adjacent. They don't have to be together to be.
I know that.
You don't. That's why you don't need the state. I'm answering. Why? What's going on?
Because you're talking about like individual buildings, right? The church is just a vessel for which people can then sort of like enact their views, right?
No, you missed my point completely. I'm saying you don't need to. You missed my point completely.
The state would just be giving those people the apparatus to then sort of like exercise their views, right? Why would you not want that if those were good views?
So is this conversation about government enforcing religion? Like what are you asking me?
I don't. Maybe. What
we're literally saying we already agreed that there is utility in the separation of church and state and faith-based things.
I don't think your logic follows that, right? So you say, right, we should separate church and state, right? You say religion has all these benefits, right? I'm saying, so why, if religion has all these benefits, would you not want the state to endorse these benefits?
Why shouldn't the state enforce prayer and meditation?
Let me do this.
That's crazy.
I promise.
Yeah, go ahead.
Water keeps you alive. There's benefits. So why not just keep drinking water till you drown? Because eventually you'll drown. Obviously, this is such a fucking non-point. That's so absurd.
I think one thing we could go to maybe, because we're talking about integrating like religion into society. I think it's like one thing I think of is every society is based on like a mythology. You can call it a religion or not, but like when we talk about like American mythology, like who's in that? Okay, like the founding fathers, Martin Luther King, and like the thing about like the thing that underpins all of our beliefs. Like when we say like, well, why is it good that we have integration? Why is it good that we have all these things? Like, well, like Martin Luther King was the guy, and we just take it for granted that Martin Luther King was, you know, someone to admire, and that we should like live his beliefs, right? It's assumed a priori. Martin Luther King was right. But if you do like a pure rational deconstruction, which you can do of anyone, well, you say, well, Martin Luther King, you know, was a Southern Baptist minister. He was Southern Baptist minister. He was not progressive when it came to LGBT rights by any stretch of the imagination. And so you could say, well, because that's the historical fact, we're now going to invalidate what he says. And this idea that, well, the point of a mythology is you have these stories underneath your culture that aren't subject to criticism, rational criticism, so to speak. You just take them for granted, and then the society is built on top of that. So like for example, the one case specifically was, I think there was
George
a lawyer who
Washington
was defending. Right. Well, but even like at a certain point, a historical figure becomes a mythological figure, and it's like, well, you know, Washington owned slaves. It's like, yes, and that's important to acknowledge. But like when people are citing Washington, like they're citing him for the, you know, whatever reason, stay out of fucking foreign wars and shit, or you know, whatever the good reasons are to
they say Abraham Lincoln. It's like when they say Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves.
Right.
Abraham Lincoln wanted to send the slaves to Central America and remove them from American society.
Right. And so
they don't talk about that.
Right. So it's advantageous to have a mythology that isn't just this purely historical, rational thing. We just draw on top of that. And like one specific example of this is there was a lawyer who was defending Harvey Weinstein. And there were a lot of people protesting him and saying, "Oh my God, why are you defending this guy?" And like in America, in principle, we have this idea that everyone is entitled to a legal self-defense no matter what. And I would say the mythology that underpins that is the story of, I think it's John Adams, who defended the British soldiers at the Boston Massacre. It's like that is, you don't cite that directly, but like learning that in childhood creates this sort of fundamental base on which things are built upon.
So okay, what I might disagree here is, again, the use of you were close, but then you took it one step too far with this use of the word myth, right? Mythologically, it starts to get into a place of fantasy. You basically you start making up facts, right? You start making up facts.
Called
about
it magic. You
individuals.
use magical beliefs.
Oh my God, please. It doesn't have to be magical, right? To be mythological, it doesn't have to be magical, right? So again, like I said, like George Washington never lies, right? Like that's the thing, right? He chopped down a cherry tree and then he told his mother, like, I could never tell a lie or some shit. Like, what the fuck was that, right? Like,
Be his ass. Cut down a fucking cherry tree.
Yeah, exactly, right? So that can starts turning the person into mythological, but. Going back to Martin Luther King, which I thought was a really interesting example, is that he is becoming mythological because of people stripping out his humanity, and his humanity does not always look good, right?
Like you're talking about. Which is why the word mythos makes sense in this conversation.
Please let me finish. Thank you. Right. So
he's praying to God. He's praying to God. Please.
Exactly, you got me.
Pray to me. Pray to me.
My prayers don't seem to be answered. I don't know. But anyway,
I agree with you, Prime. We agree with you. But you have come to this conclusion that the word, you're just like gung ho on the word mythos, when mythos literally means a set of beliefs or assumptions.
Oh my God.
About something.
Go ahead.
It's
finish your point, though, Prime.
I just don't understand.
Thank you. Let me finish. Okay. Right. So like I said, I thought it was interesting because at some point, right, we people call it the Santa Clausification of Martin Luther King, right? Then you make him into some sort of pure being, which he was not, right? Martin Luther King cheated on his wife like a lot. Right, this is the thing he did. Right, Martin Luther King. There's great evidence to show that he plagiarized like his like essay in college, what's it called, the big document thesis. Yeah, I think thesis or something like that. In college, there's a big look that up. Martin Luther King plagiarism. Right, it'll come up. So like he is not a perfect human being, right? But I actually think that makes him better. Right, a deeply flawed individual. But no matter, despite that, managed to rise up and achieve great things. It's a great lesson for everyone, right? That even flawed as you are, you can achieve great things. But we've made him into a mythological being in which, he had this clear foresight, right, as to the direction that the country should go, right? And then he just himself and almost by himself, like through his force of will, made that happen, right? That is actually not so useful, right? That he is becoming a myth. So I agree with you on that end, right?
There's definitely a danger of when you mythologize someone, then you say, well, these people are not subject to criticism. It's what the right does with the founding fathers. It's like, well, they wrote the Constitution and it's this holy document and therefore it's above criticism. It's like, no, it's not. These people are still real. I would just say there's American mythology, and the founding fathers are Martin Luther King, and they're not fully this mythical person. But at the bottom of it, going back to the idea I said at the very beginning about we're underpinned by Christian mythology, is like the person that is the underlying figure that we would use as the standard of perfection is Jesus, right? Like Jesus historically, was perfect. At least that's the historical.
No. But there's ways where there's been critiques of Jesus fell into depression before he was about to die. Jesus gave into anger when he was getting the merchants out of the church. Jesus was criticized for not saving
Jesus used the slur against Herod. He called him a fox.
Interesting. I just kind of take it for granted that within like Christian mythology, Jesus is, if anything, he's the perfect person. But yeah, there's probably critique. Sure, that'd be interesting.
I was trying to relate
ways that we mythologize him.
I was trying to relate this to something else you said, but because of all the fucking interruptions, I literally can't remember the other thing. Because I thought you took a step for your mythology, for your mythos, you took it a step too far. I forget exactly what you said, and I was going to relate it to that.
Was it the Martin Luther King thing? Or was it George Washington Can't Tell a Lie?
I don't remember. But maybe if I can remember later on.
Sure.
Go ahead, Wick, please.
Yeah, so when we say these are how people think and how people operate and how people tell their stories is through mythological figures, we're not saying that it's entirely good. There are obviously flaws to this. There are obviously things that it creates problems. But this is just how it works. We can see this happening right now as we speak with Ukraine. The myth of the ghost of Kiev, the myth of Zelensky is becoming, in a very real way, a mythological figure that we will create despite his flaws and the flaws of him going into this. There are already quotes. Man, I'm going to buy a shirt that says, I need ammo, not a ride. You know what I mean? That's fucking badass motherfucker shit to say. Well, Prime, you may not know this, but when the Americans offered to evacuate Zelensky from Kiev, he's like, I need ammo, not a ride. And that's a kind of a mythological thing that's going to grow in proportion and is going to be used to tell the story in the future.
Yeah.
Idolization. But this is
Those
going
aren't
to
the
be
same
used to
thing.
tell the story. It's going to be they are creating a mythical figure and idolizing someone are have a lot of connections.
But
I'd say
idolizing somebody
synonymous.
is like looking at somebody that actually exists, I'd feel. Whereas mythology and mythologizing is getting rid of negative traits or saying that this isn't like a person per se.
Well, you can have like mythological evil figures, and that was, I think, Wick's point about it's not just inherently a good thing. It's like you can tell whatever mythological story you want.
Yeah, but they're very one-dimensional usually.
Sure.
That's
The more
mythologizing tends
yeah.
to
Well,
make
what
people-
this is the archetype. The more abstract the mythology, the more archetypal. Like a good example. This is just an example I use is like film is always about archetypes and stuff and drawing on these like mythical figures. So like Lord of the Rings is very abstract, wizards and demons and all that shit. And then you have like Marriage Story, which is like a very human, very no mythology involved at all, but it's still drawing on these like fundamental ideas of like love and betrayal and all that stuff. And then there's like in between that you could have something like Silence of the Lambs, which is like it's pushing human evil to like this almost mythical level, even though it's still within the real world. So there is like there's a level of abstraction where like the archetype up here is super abstract. And then at the bottom, there's like, it's grounded more in reality. And that was my point about like Martin Luther King and George Washington, the founding fathers, are like in that middle space between Jesus and like, real people who are flawed and are subject to rational critique. It's like that level of abstraction and mythology is what we draw upon to communicate.
But that doesn't, okay, so, and then what, Spoon, do you want to go afterwards? Okay. I don't think that means that our society is based on religion. One, like the founding fathers were like fucking deists and shit, right? And they oftentimes rejected religion. But even then, right? Even if it is based on mythologized characters, which I believe it is, right, to a certain extent, especially once we like to pretend like they weren't fucking slaveholders, right? So that doesn't mean that the society built afterwards isn't secular, right? Or actually, it's hard to say, and this is what the Ashley's question was, like, what is secular? Because we have these like waves, right, of a society moving in a more secular direction and then being pulled back. Like there's like the religious revivals. We've had in our time period, there have been different religious revivals in America, and politics has reacted accordingly, right? And we've become more religious at the time, right? So then what exactly is secular? We haven't, a secular society, we haven't answered that. And I don't think that necessarily means that religion is completely excised, right?
Go ahead.
When I figure a picture of a secular society, right? It's one in which it's laws and rules are based around empirical evidence, right? Just that, and not a basis on a book, right? And that our politicians use empirical evidence to make all the decision makings, right? And then you don't have these things like, well, I have to pray to God, right, to figure out that if I'm going to allow women to control their bodies or some shit like that, right? Like that doesn't play into it. That's what I consider a secular society. It doesn't necessarily mean that we have to actively destroy Christianity or whatever, right?
Right. That gets to the. Or go ahead.
No. Finish your point.
The natural.
Finish your point. Finish your point.
I thought you were starting a new point.
Finish your point, and then I want to go to Spoon.
Yeah. Yes, and I agree. Like a secular society and like one that separates church and state, we need that. And again, it goes back to this fundamental issue of, well, how deep at the bottom of your rationality, like what are you going to base that on, and go from there, the leap of faith. But to your point about like mythology doesn't have to be like a particular religion, because like Star Wars, it's a secular mythology. It's not based, it's sci-fi, so it's kind of more modernized or whatever. But like all of those mythologies, all of those stories are still, it's Darth Vader is the evil Dark Lord, right? It's like that's the devil, right? It's all playing on the same sort of religious theme or themes that were established in religion, and that's why, like, I think mythology is a good way of that kind of maybe middle ground between. It's not explicitly a religious idea because there's many different mythologies, and it's still drawing. Secular people can still enjoy it. So yeah.
I'm really not convinced that like the proponents of religion do want a secular state, right? I don't understand like this sort of line of thinking.
Which proponents of religion? Because I would agree with you. There are certainly some crazy fundamentalists out there.
Well, I think anybody who believes that religion is like good or has positive, I find it hard to believe how you could.
It's a very religious thought.
How you could believe that like you don't want this included in the state, right? So you're like, right, the state should enforce good things, right? Religion is a good thing. Why should the state not endorse religion, right? Why should the state not be like, right?
Nutritional food is good. Should the state enforce nutritional food?
These are very different things, though, right?
But
like
we already
you earlier
answered
said
this.
too much. No, but you earlier said too much water is bad, and it's like, yes, water is good for you, but the reason why too much is bad is because your body can't take too much. You actually
that
have
was
to
a
give
joke.
them.
He was literally saying because it's good to drink water.
The reason why religion is
enforce drinking water.
So what's the analogy? Too much religion is bad. If people believe too hard,
yes.
But why is it bad?
What's bad?
Why is dogmatic fundamentalism a bad thing?
We're almost there. We're so fucking close, right? So you're like, right, this is my set of beliefs, my religion, right? I believe this is correct because like God or whatever
Honestly,
cosmic order dictates it to be correct, right? But too much of this would be bad, actually. Why? Right? If it's correct, if it's the correct set of beliefs, why would too much of it be bad?
I don't know if you're asking us, like, well, what's an example of religion gone wrong? It's like, that's self-evident. We all agree there's ridiculous religious stuff.
Not religion gone wrong, right?
That's someone who blows themselves up because their religion tells them something stupid is a bad example.
If you're a Christian, right? If you're a Christian and you believe...
Christian adjacent.
I love that.
Anyone,
I think he's giving a hypothetical.
Right, someone who's a Christian, right? And they believe in God. They believe the Bible is like correct about things. They believe
that's
the
just
church
me.
is correct. As you, right? He believes that's correct. Why would you not want this to be the society that you live in? Why would you not want the state to enforce this? I don't believe that you actually do want.
I can answer this question.
I know we can answer it too.
You want what you want. What you want.
What do you want, Spoon?
What you want?
Unless you're Christian.
What you want is your beliefs enforced because you believe those beliefs are correct, right? Right? You believe that like people should believe what you believe because what you believe is correct, right?
Yeah. So as the Christian, and then I'll let Wit go, and Steelman.
Why would you not want society to enshrine your beliefs that you believe are correct? Why would you not want that?
Because it's literally number one. It's impossible.
I do want that, by the way, right? I'm like secular. I do want.
You
society
want the Ten Commandments enforced in law. You want to go back.
No. I'm secular, right? I'm secular, right? So you have a religion. This is your set of beliefs, and you're saying, no, I don't actually want these enshrined in law. I'm secular. I have these sets of beliefs. I do want these enshrined in law, right? I do want society to operate on my set of beliefs, right? You're saying I have a set of beliefs that I don't want society to operate on. What kind of fucking set of beliefs is that?
What are you talking about?
Hey, so can I try?
I thought you were asking me. At first, it sounded like you were saying that there are benefits to religion, and the state should enforce these benefits. The reason why I'm saying it's not always going to be.
I'm asking you.
It's not going to be good.
I'm asking
because you cannot.
I'm asking you, why do you not want society to be framed around your set of beliefs, and your set of beliefs are religious?
Because one of my set of beliefs are in the freedom of religion. The freedom, that's the set of belief. A lot of Christians believe this. Mormonism especially believes that in the pre-existence, we fought a war in heaven because Satan's plan was to force the belief of every man, woman, and child who were born. And we fought against that. That was against God's plan. The God's plan was to say that every single person has the choice, and to force it.
So then why are you interrupting? Why don't you just let us answer?
It's fundamentally wrong. Your misunderstanding of what religion is leading you to these really dogmatic beliefs.
It's not even a misunderstanding. It's not even a misunderstanding.
And it's a mischaracterization. Can I finish, please? Just mischaracterization of it. You are not educated enough on this subject to be able to speak to it in a way that is able to convince anyone. You don't understand what religion is. Certainly, some religions
He's not
have
saying
and
force.
do.
Why aren't you taking this into
Can I
account?
finish, please?
Oh
Have
my
and
God!
do.
You keep talking about
enshrine it
freedom.
in
This is
their-
so
in
off
their,
track.
framework of
Where are we?
of government.
Well,
I'm just glad Paul can speak.
However,
Oh my
many
God.
religions value and believe on a fundamental religious level that the freedom of choice is most important, and that is why they would not
freedom is completely apart from this, right? Like my set of beliefs. I don't want to force them on everybody. I just want people to believe.
You literally. What is this question? What are you talking about?
This is recorded. We can go back and fucking chat.
I know, right? I'll explain what I fucking just said. Okay.
Delete the VOD.
My set of beliefs. Right?
Yeah,
My set of
please
beliefs,
explain
right?
what you're
Destroy
trying
the
to say.
evidence.
I don't want them. I don't
Mythological.
want them forced on anyone, right? I want people to believe my set of beliefs, and as a result, that's how society is shaped, right? And you're telling me you want people to believe your religion because, like, your religion is correct, but you don't want society shaped on that.
You literally mischaracterize everything people have been saying here. That means you have not been listening.
So hold on.
We're not
you
saying
don't.
we want people. There are aspects of religiosity.
You don't think people should believe your religion?
I framed in the very beginning of this conversation, secularism is the removal of the metaphysical aspects of supernatural beliefs, which is attained through, like we said, prayer, meditation, communing in church or out of church, psychedelics. Those things become useless within a secular society because there is no utility to metaphysical things. Literally, you said yourself, it's based to be a speck of dust in the cold abscess of the universe.
We made the point that separation of church and state was a Christian idea, or is grounded in a Christian ethic.
It's not even a Christian.
Therapy is
right. It's a religion. Yeah, many other religions have done it as well, but that's a point. And Prime, I don't know if I think what, and I don't know if we can. If there's another topic we want to hit on, I think maybe nihilism and meaning, and like how does religion provide meaning, might be interesting because I think that would be. I'd love to hear.
Because secularism will lead to nihilism. Secularism.
Yeah, I agree. The logical conclusion of secularism of not, and I know we're mixing terms out, but like the logical conclusion of pure rationality, ungrounded to any sort of like faith claim or religious idea, is nihilism. That's the logical outcome. And I think that leaves people meaningless.
No, it's not.
I don't think so necessarily.
I don't believe.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm not like I don't want to kill myself. Like, come on. Like, you can absolutely not believe in like any value in the universe and still get along just fine, just as anybody who's not religious does.
I disagree totally, but I would. Yeah. I mean, we could. Let's hear it. Let's hear what is the if there is no fundamental meaning, if there's no anything, how do you rationally get to a?
You can provide your own meaning, right? Like that. It's simple as that.
I create my own meaning.
You can.
What's important to me is important to me because I find it important. And that's
but you can't choose that. You can't rationally choose that.
Of course you can.
Well, yeah, of course.
No,
you can.
No. Like here's an example. If you have a video game that you've played 10 years ago and you lost enjoyment, you cannot will yourself to find enjoyment in that video game again. You cannot choose to find meaning in a video game. Meaning happens like outside of you.
Enjoyment and meaning are two separate things. Enjoyment and meaning.
Well, I would say like if you're meaningfully engaged with a video game that you really enjoy and you play it out, no matter how much you rationally say like I paid a lot of money, it's in my library, it was good when I played it before.
But
why can't I will myself to this? These are very different
things. These are very different things. Like for instance, Nier Automata, my favorite game I've ever played. I find so much meaning in that game, right? But I wouldn't get enjoyment from playing it again. I've played it like 4 times. I wouldn't enjoy playing it again, but I see so much meaning in it, and I can look back at it and say there was so much meaning in that. And I can understand there's so much meaning.
Yes,
so
and
maybe the word we should use is not meaning, is purpose, right? Because I can choose my purpose. Like if I was a father, I could choose my purpose being then raising my kids, right? This is what I've been placed here to do, or something, right? This is the thing that oh my god, but this is the thing that that my life's it's my life's work. It's what gets me up in the morning, right? That's why I decided not to like just off myself, because this is a cold, unfeeling universe. Right. It's because I have these kids and they're important to me. And then you can replace kids with anything else, right? But I agree with you when like you're talking about meaning, and that like that is something that is like inspires you or something, and not everything can do that. You know?
If the tangible material things are stripped away, right? You no longer have.
You're breaking up a little bit. You're breaking up.
He's kind of cutting out.
Yeah, you're cutting out.
If you know, because I'm getting close to my mic. If you no longer have those material,
you're broken up, buddy. You're broken up. I'm sorry.
Like staticky.
Yeah. Maybe get closer. I don't know.
Like testing 1 2 3 testing. 1, 2,
You're still breaking up a bit. We'll get back to you, buddy. I promise.
Maybe I gotta leave and come back.
Yeah. Okay. Try that, and I'll pull you back in. Azzy. I'm sorry. Wick.
Oh no, I was enjoying this.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is one way where I think I might disagree with Paul a little bit about.
Sure,
I
that'd
do
be
not
interesting.
think it necessarily needs to nihilism. I think in many cases it can, but I think that it does not necessarily. I think to make that claim, I would be hesitant.
Yeah, I guess I would refine it to say if you take it to its logical conclusion and then you act it out, then that is nihilism. But you can say I'm a nihilist, I don't believe in meaning. Like I don't believe there's a meaning to anything. But like again, going back to the point of like what you find meaningful, and meaning and purpose are related, and I think it may be synonymous, and definitely you can kind of like articulate I want to have conversations about these kinds of ideas. So this conversation is meaningful to me because I'm engaging in what I have kind of articulated to myself. But I would say a lot of what the parameters around what we find meaningful are outside of rational decision making. Like we can't choose that. So like if you're an introvert,
like culture puts it on you.
Yeah, right. Or even just your biological the biological elements of your personality. Like some people are just wired to be more introverted or extroverted.
Or empathetic.
So like you Right. So you can rationally like learn and adopt behaviors to improve that, but like you can't just will yourself rationally to say I'm gonna find enjoyment being at this big party if I'm an introvert, or I'm gonna find enjoyment in this video game.
I would disagree with that a little bit.
Okay, go ahead.
There's nuance in it. Am I still breaking up, or is it better?
You're good now.
No.
Wick, finish your point.
But so while you cannot entirely will yourself to that, I think that you can, however, improve your attitude to something through conscious will. I can tell myself, and because the brain is a powerful thing, and we can convince ourselves of many things. I think there are techniques we can use. I think psychotherapists use these techniques to adjust our way of thinking. And if we believe that, at a fundamental level, that we can adjust our way of thinking either through techniques that psychotherapy uses, psychedelics, etc., we have to believe. It's almost a one-for-one thing that we can choose our way of thinking, like choose to change our way of thinking towards a certain aspect of things. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and maybe I could make an empirical argument for why meaning is like meaning is an objective, like the idea that life has meaning, that's not up for dispute in my opinion. I think meaning is a physiological instinct like hunger or thirst, right? Like if you're hungry, there's certain things you have to do to satiate your hunger, right? You can't rationalize your way out of it. You can't reframe it and say, well, hunger doesn't matter, blah, blah, blah. It's like your body has demands that it needs to be met. Meaning's the same thing. And technically what the feeling of meaning is, like being meaningfully engaged in something, like flow state is sort of the technical term for that. And what that is you feel meaningful engagement when you are operating in a space that is that you feel is bringing you towards your valued goal. Now, like Prime said, like purpose, you can kind of decide your purpose and choose a purpose. But what's not up for dispute is that in order to feel positive emotion, through dopamine, that's the dopaminergic system. In order to get those hits of dopamine, you can do it through drugs, but again, you do that long enough, that's bad. To get dopamine, the way it's set up, the non-pathological way to do it is to make progress towards a valued goal, and you get little hits of dopamine as you make progress, right? So if you release a video and you get 10,000 views or way more views than you think, you get a hit of dopamine because it's bringing you closer to that whatever goal you might have. And so the instinct of, and so like the nihilist point of like, well, life doesn't have any meaning, you just get to make it up as you go. It's like, I reject that entirely because there are objective parameters around what you can and cannot find meaningful. And arguably, just bringing it back to religion, is like like a lot of people find meaning in religion, but again, this instinct of meaning, I think, goes to this idea of at a psychological level, what you find the most meaningful and what, like, whether it's a mystical experience, meditation, acting out something, like that is in that I would call like a religious pursuit. And it's not like an uncommon idea to say like, well, God is your money. Your money is God. Or your God is money. Your God is cocaine. Your God is whatever. Like, yeah, that's obviously it's not a metaphysical claim,
Nine
but
Inch
it's a
Nails
very
wrote a song like that.
yeah, right. But and Freud said this, and many other people said this, and there's plenty wrong with people who said it. I know, but like that I think that framework is very useful because it's accurate in describing that phenomenon. So I don't know if anyone has thoughts.
The only thing that I wanted to say, right? I mean, I'll just go off of what you said, right? Finding meaning. Humans, you have empirical evidence that people are not that flexible to just choose their purpose at will, just at will, at any time, whenever they want. People just don't do that. In fact, it is a consensus amongst humanity that amongst people go through these terms of depression and anxiety because they have that lack of capability to just choose their purpose and choose their meaning in life. In fact, and which is all I have to say is that's dumb. If you're gonna espouse that, that's
rubbish, mate. Like again,
so what study can you pull up? Like what if we're gonna go off of this secular society? What empirical evidence can you provide me now?
I'll just use myself as an example of someone who doesn't like seek purpose or have purpose or define purpose myself. And
so it's rubbish because of you.
Happy.
Yeah, but you get meaning. Like you can't deny that you get meaning. You do though. That's
so,
like,
but and even that
you can say
example
that, but you're just
ridiculous.
Wrong.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. What you just did right there. You're trying to.
I don't enjoy it. I have goals. I have desires. I have hopes and dreams.
Right, and those are meaningful to you. So that has meaning
to you. And
it's completely secular. They're nothing to do with like my. I understand that all these things like have zero value.
But you didn't arrive at those rationally. Hold on. If rationally they don't have any value, then why do you get any meaning from them? Isn't the definition of something
because of you? This is why I get so upset. He said because it's his own feelings and merits that because I have meaning, therefore what I just said is
I don't know.
Is ridiculous.
Answer for me if you want, but like
no, because you keep cutting me off with sweet nothings, and I'm trying to like stop cutting me off with sweet nothings.
I mean,
please relax.
You kind of cited the idea was like studied, but you didn't cite a study. So then you're immediately asking him.
No, dude, that's petty. Come on now.
It's why he's just.
I didn't think we were this unintelligent that we can't like.
Boy.
Right. But then why are you bringing up that he needs a study?
Hold on.
No,
wait, hold on. Let me ask Sneaky, or let me ask Spoon rather. If you're saying that like meaning, you recognize that no meaning is inherent. It's like you construct it rationally. Okay, but like do you? Okay, what are you saying exactly? Hold on, what are you saying exactly about meaning?
That anyone can only exist in the present, right? And just as a function of me being a human, right? I desire things.
Agreed.
Right? And I know these desires are irrational, right? I fully understand that they're nothing. They have no impact on the universe. There is no meaning to them, but they still exist, right?
It's meaningful to you.
No. Yes, exactly, right. It's meaningful to me, but ultimately there is no meaning to it. Right, it's only meaningful to me, right, and it's only meaningful to me.
Right, but ultimately, it is meaningful to you. Now, whether the meaning exists out in the other, it's like you are like your experience.
You exist.
Yeah, your experience. Your experience is the totality of reality for you, as it is for each of us. So, if it's meaningful to you, it has ultimate meaning because you can't. You don't dispute it.
That's like some solipsism rubbish. Okay, right. I'm not the only.
It's not solipsism.
That is saying that like
no, it's not because we all pursue meaning in our own individual ways, but it's all real.
You're saying the universe is only real to your perception of the universe, right? And like meaning is only true to your perception of meaning, right? That's just
but this is non sequitur. This is a non sequitur to everything that we just said. Literally, you are providing like this is a non-empirical thing, and yet you have a secular society, which Prime has defined as laws and beliefs being forced upon. I just don't understand it.
You cannot rationally explain. You cannot rationally explain why things are meaningful to you, but you accept them as meaningful.
Yes, exactly right. So
that's not nihilistic because they have meaning for you.
It's absurdism, but it's like the big difference.
The only thing worse than nihilism.
the big difference is I accept they're irrational, and I say like, well, I know they're irrational, but like it's the best I got.
Hold on.
I,
We all accept it's irrational
let me
too.
finish.
Yeah.
It's
Let me finish.
irrational.
Let him finish.
I literally
Let me finish.
like
Let me finish.
Let him finish.
Let me finish. Right?
sure.
So I accept it's irrational, and I go, yeah, but that's the best I got because I can only exist in the present as myself from this perspective, right? So I accept it's irrational, but like, hey ho, it's fine, right? The universe has no meaning, but like that's fine because at the moment I'm perfectly happy, right? And I can just distract myself from the meaningless of the universe by following these desires that seem to just manifest out of irrationality.
And that will destroy you if you just do it,
What,
like
no,
pure
it-
hedonism.
If you find meaning
Not
in
yet.
gambling,
Yeah. What
It-
if you just do cocaine? What if you? Why not just do? Why
look
is
at
it not?
the gotcha whales on the
Yeah.
site that we're on who waste everything and they find meaning in it, and only the lucky ones survive.
Is it
like-
irrational to just do cocaine?
Is it?
No, not at all.
If you find meaningful, you don't think so. So
No.
if you were talking to someone and they said, "Hey, I get all my meaning from doing cocaine," you would say, "Cool."
If you want to do like loads of cocaine,
Yeah. Well,
until you
I
die-
worry about your friends then. That's a terrible.
Just
way to
because
do
it's
it.
rational doesn't mean
crazy,
it's
bro.
good, right?
Let me finish.
True.
Right? If
So
you
then
definitely
what's
agree
the
with
what's
that.
but then what's the
Oh
net
my God, let him
benefit
finish.
of
Let's finish.
if you want to fucking live your life and you're like, do you know what makes me happy? Just doing loads of cocaine until I die. Do loads of cocaine until you die, right? Like that. That's a
What
perfectly
is?
fine
That's
way
what I'm
to-
saying. That's such a that's so self-evidently
Ridiculous.
stupid.
Fine,
You would tell
fine,
someone
fine,
that who
fine.
has
That's
an
a secular
addiction.
society for you.
Fine.
Yeah, really.
Because I find
I don't
meaning.
think that has to do with
in
the
doing
secular
that.
society.
If this is where it leads,
It has
then that's
everything to
self-evidently.
do.
Yeah, but you understand most people don't want that. Most people have these values that are constructed out of this culture, and they like do things that I guess you would.
What
consider
planet are
construct-
you living on? What Earth 2? Where have you been?
Like,
Or
like,
values are not always
Sure.
constructed. Like it could be your personality, like extrovert versus introvert. That's not a constructed value.
If you're saying
Okay.
something it means beneficial, if you're if you are
I didn't say good means beneficial.
more
Okay.
Oh my
At
God.
this point,
Yeah,
You're
he's
breaking
cutting out
up.
a bit.
You're breaking up again. I don't know why. I'm sorry.
I think
buddy.
it's funny that we're like, oh well, it's a stretch to say that religion defines all these things, and then we say, well, good doesn't mean beneficial. It's like, okay, well, I don't know what any of these words mean then, if that's what the case.
This is like the peak of fucking of like ethics and morality, right? So you've got like the dum on the low end,
Right?
the low
That's
end of
me,
IQ.
right?
Like, right, good things are bad because I like good things are good because I like them, and bad things are bad because I dislike them. And then you've got like the middle of the bell curve, like the average IQ saying, no, there's like a complex system of like morality and ethics and like spirituality. And then on like the high IQ end, like the far end of the bell curve, you've got like no, good things are good because I like them, and bad things are bad because I dislike them, right? And that's
Good
like
meme.
what it boils down to, right? Like all your ethical systems and all your stuff, right? It's just because you like it or you dislike it, and that's like the be all and end all of it, and there's no like greater meaning to it. Right?
That's
difference,
the dumbest
right?
thing I've ever heard.
So-
as evidenced
I wanna jump
evidenced
in.
by you saying that if someone does cocaine, that's a good thing, and they should just continue to do that. It's like, okay.
So I want to jump
The
in.
difference is that, right? I'm perfectly willing to admit that, like, my belief is just like, it comes out of nowhere and it's irrational. And
It comes out of the culture you're in, which is influenced by religion. So I agree, it does come out of nowhere to you.
Yeah, it comes out of nowhere, right? Because I don't really like intentionally engage with these things. I'm just a product of my environment, right? Whereas you say, right, no, there's like some sort of like higher like set of values that I'm sort of like striving to attain to somehow, right? There's some sort of like spiritual aspect to this that I'm striving to attain to, and you think it's not irrational. You think there is rationality somewhere. There's some sort of like objective truth in this spirituality, and like you not only know that it exists, but you also can interpret it correctly, which is fine. Like if one of
I've
these
never
things
said
predict-
that, and no one on here has said that.
I know that's not what
Can
you've
we
said, but
bring
that's what
Azia?
I know that's not what you've said, right? But that's what your set of values concludes to. That's
Nope.
the logical extrapolation of your
No, it's not.
ideas.
No, it's not.
Well,
You don't have
cool.
to say there's a rationally articulated, objective understanding of like this spiritual metaphysical area. That it's by definition can't be done. But to accept it and say yes, it is a for the whole point about like we can rationally construct. Well, meaning is just whatever I make in the moment and whatever feels good in the moment. That's the highest level of ethics. It's like that's a good joke. And every cocaine addict who has died, if you're saying, well, this is good ethics. It's like, good. We can exclude you from the conversation at this point if you think that's good ethics. It's like
Just
that's some
use
stuff we
cocaine
have
in
to take
moderation.
self-evident.
Just I want to jump in here real quick and kind of point out to the audience and kind of really stress this and bring this point home. Throughout this conversation, again, I don't agree with everything Hyung has said here, but me, Hyung, sorry, Azzy, but me and Hyung mostly has been putting forth like words of scholars like Joseph Campbell. There's other authors.
Jordan Peterson.
Jordan
Lobster
Peterson.
King.
If you
I said
like,
Mortimer J.
people who have
Adams. I don't know what you're
expertise,
talking about.
who have
Audacity.
scholarships,
The
like
audacity
who
to
are
reject me
scholars
when
in
you
these
cite
fields.
somebody who's not even in his field.
All of human. Can I finish, please?
Yeah,
All
let
of
me
human
finish.
history. These things have been studied and have been looked at, and the words that we are saying are not our words. They're not
Peterson is
my
a
thoughts.
Appeal to
We're
authority.
representing the thoughts of.
Jordan Peterson is a
I mean, but this
psychologist.
is the thing. Whereas Sneaky Debate Man has been basically using debates and memes, like he's a debate bro, I get it, and memes to be like, nuh-uh.
Is
That's
a
the entirety of his argument. Nuh-uh.
Yeah,
That's
cocaine
all
addicts
he
on the side of the
provided
road.
evidence-wise.
That's
That's
okay.
all he
It's like,
provided with
okay.
any
Jordan
kind of
Peterson is not a
empirical data
philosopher.
is nuh-uh.
He has
And
no
so
he has no qualifications for
why
philosophy.
would we
He's a
ever
psychologist.
believe anything that you say when your appeal to religious is it religious
The
itself?
words
You
of
are
Joseph
the
Campbell
most
are not
religious
empirical.
person, Snakey. You are the most religious person on this fucking panel.
Yeah.
I just want to
Amen.
point that out. You are the
Amen.
most religious person
Right.
on this fucking
I
panel.
bet you go out with your friends and say praise the sun and
Praise
all
the,
the time.
sun.
Like I know you guys. I know.
When Sneaky's
But-
on
but
cocaine,
that
he's out
died
praising
off.
the sun.
But
What a
that
religious
died off
guy.
apparently. But it's apparently on every T-shirt when you go to the convention, the anime convention. Praise the sun.
Praise
It's
the
like
sun. Yeah.
it's just I'm like, please stop interrupting me with sweet nothings and then ask to be able to finish. Like that's crazy to me. That really is crazy to me.
You asked me a question, I responded, then you cut me off.
No,
and
I'm
didn't answer
asking
it.
you a question to prove that what you're saying is we've
don't
already
wanna hear the whole
conceded.
answer?
We've
You don't wanna
already,
hear the whole-
no, we've already agreed on this. Why
You
keep
don't want to hear the
beating
whole answer.
the dead dog?
I
Why
don't
do
know,
we
you're
keep
cutting
beating
out.
this
Maybe that's a
bush?
sign from God that you're cutting out. Eh? Maybe that's a religion.
Because I'm
coming in
yelling,
something.
I'm yelling into my mic because you're getting me upset.
Oh God.
I was just like,
I'm sorry.
what the heck?
But like, Wick, again, like you won't stop doing this, right? First of all, the whole thing, like, oh, I brought up proof. I
Okay, I can
quoted
cite
Joseph
more.
Campbell.
There's more.
Okay, whatever,
Dan
right?
Harris,
How is that empirical?
he wrote a
of
book called
fucking
10%
anything.
Happier. There's also other scholars
First,
out
if he
there.
wrote a
who-
book.
Making the
okay.
argument. You're just
Yeah,
citing
yeah.
authority.
Is scholars just mean
Yeah.
that like they wrote a book?
When
Is that it?
scientists say that vaccines help COVID, well, they're
Come on,
just
then
scientists.
then
Studies
don't
they
do it.
rigorously
No.
test them.
Don't embarrass yourself, Wick. Don't do it.
You're not making
Don't do it. Like,
dogmatic.
yeah, you're being dogmatic. Oh my God, yeah, which means that fucking
Like
anything
somebody
now.
writing a book doesn't make it true, right?
True.
If somebody writes
That's
the
true.
philosophy in a book,
I
it
would
doesn't make
agree.
it true. Otherwise, we would be following the Bible,
No,
the truest
I
book
would
ever
agree with
written.
you.
don't-
Like,
you're not
actually,
making
no,
the
that's a very
argument.
good
You're
point.
saying
And I want to
people
stress
have
that
been
point.
making it.
Just because I have put forth these arguments and I have put forth these credible, like these sources, check them for yourself. Decide for
Well,
yourself.
are they
Do
credible?
not just
How
believe
would
me.
they be
Do
credible?
not just believe me. But what I would advocate for is do not let your preconceived notions, your, dare I say, religious beliefs, your dogmatism, make you wholesale reject these notions just on the fact, well, my worldview says this can't be true. My ideology says this can't be true. Therefore, I'm going to use conspiratorial thinking to find a way that they are not.
Wick, is that what we're doing?
That's all I'm saying.
No,
That's
here-
all
but
I'm
here's, no. Here's the
Do it
thing,
for
because
yourself.
again, you've been stretching that definition of a rational / religious, apparently, as far as you can. Is that what we're doing? Is what we're doing like simply tossing your ideas completely out by hand, right? Just cause, right? Just because we can't see outside of a viewpoint, or is it that we have a viewpoint, right, that's backed up by a certain level of facts and evidence, and you have not brought enough evidence
What
to
are those facts
contract
and
that
evidence?
to change your minds, right?
I would
It could
love
be
to
that-
hear these facts.
I'm not here to
first of
change
all,
your
hold on,
mind.
first of all, where are your facts and evidence of Joseph Campbell? I do want to get that right. Joseph Campbell is not a
Pretty
fucking
solid book.
scientist, right? So like,
Sure, but he's a
a scholar
sociologist.
said. What?
He's a sociologist.
Okay, so yeah, and
That's
what?
I mean, is that not a
Oh,
valid
my
field of
God.
study?
Okay.
Is that not a valid
It's
field of study, though?
theology.
But
Like, do we,
Well,
or is
Yeah.
sociology not a valid field of study? If you don't believe
sociology,
so, I get it.
sociology is a valid field of study. Okay.
Let me ask you a question,
but-
Prime. What are the shortcomings
Okay,
of
no,
science?
real quick, Azzy, real
No,
quick.
yeah, go
No,
ahead.
I want to engage with facts and evidence, please.
Okay.
So,
Yeah,
what
that's
facts
all
and
we want.
evidence can you provide that show that like, and I know this is a tall order to just pull it out because again, like, this is a panel, I get it, and we're trying to have a discussion, but like, I've heard a lot of hypotheticals, okay, I heard a lot of reasoning, okay, but where's your data? Where's your evidence here? Like, I can point to
Yeah,
every
I
single
can-
culture.
yeah, I can do
I
that.
can point to every single culture in
No.
human history. I can point to how the Ukraine situation is playing out to show how mythological people are being mythologized right now. I can point to these things.
Yeah,
I
just
can point
feel
to these
you
things.
guys are not acting
that
in good
doesn't-
faith right now.
And then the fact, and even if people are being mythologized, that doesn't mean anything in terms of religion,
It
right?
shows
That's
that humans have religious ways of thinking because we tell stories.
Stories. Telling stories is different from religion. Again, everything for you is synonymous with religion.
Bible is a book of
Irrationally,
stories.
synonymous with
Not
religion.
everything.
Stories are synonymous with religion, right?
I can like video
dogmatism,
games and not
synonymous with
do it in a
religion.
religious way.
Everything equals religion, and that is
It
not
does
the
not.
case at all. But that's
That's
how
not
you're
what I'm
using
saying.
it the
No,
entire
This is what
time.
you say.
Prime, you
Right,
don't
this
got
is
to
what
ask
you
a
say.
question?
I've said, but this is not what I'm saying. You can like a certain book, you can like a certain thing, and not have a religion. Like, you can arrive at certain beliefs with not having a religious way of doing it. Not everything is religious. However, when you arrive at a certain point through magical thinking, it is kind of a religion.
Wait,
kind of
can I ask
religion.
a question?
Wait, here's a question.
Sure,
How do you
of course,
arrive at a
of
set of
course.
beliefs
Please,
secularly?
Ashley, ask me the question.
Okay, so every time before I go to sleep, right, I check the top shelf in my closet. That's right behind my bed there, right? I check the top shelf. Is that a religion to you?
No,
Because
that's a kind of a spirit.
that's a
what's it
ritual
called?
that I do.
Not
It's not very
supernatural,
rational. I wouldn't defend it rationally.
social.
Would that be a
But you're
religion?
a single individual. What if you?
What
If
your
everyone, if
intention
it's
does
Ashley, can I
common
ask
to
you-
check
can I
the
answer your
closet
question?
for a monster,
Can I
is
answer
that
your question,
a religion?
please? So
Sure.
if it's just you, not a religion. But if you and your entire community did it, that might be a religious ritual. Does that make sense? Is the difference there?
Well, what I'm trying to get at is, it's very common to check your closet for monsters, right? That's a very common thing. Would you call that a religion?
That's
It's
called
kind of-
superstition. Superstition is not the same
supercultural
thing as
superstition.
religion.
Okay,
We've
but
already,
why-
necessarily.
and
It
that's
can
the
be.
problem with
It
this
can
conversation.
be.
I mean, it can be,
Yes,
but that's
it
the
can
problem
be.
with this conversation. We are equating mysticism and magic with religiosity. It's not the same thing. Which is why I was like, Prime, how can you go out and say magical thinking and have a problem with the word mythos?
I didn't have a problem with the word
We
mythos.
fall on.
I just want
didn't
to arrive
have
at
a-
a secular belief. I
Go
just
ahead.
want to
You
arrive
did.
at a secular belief.
Oh,
I just want to
you know
arrive
what?
at a secular
I'm
belief.
not gonna-
Like, what?
How does one? If
arrive
I
at a
deal with
secular belief?
something casually, it's not it's not it's not like, what's the word? I'm not doing this every single day. It's like
You're not.
I might go for the walk one day. It's not a ritual. It's not a tradition.
What is
I
a
don't even-
secular belief?
this is
to you?
like-
What do you
I don't
believe
even
a
want to
secular
engage
belief
in
is?
this. This is like really dumb.
I think
Let's move
Casual
forward.
gamers aren't
Answer.
religious. Let's
Maybe-
go.
Answer.
maybe
Let's move
maybe
forward.
Answer.
maybe a good analogy, which might be not good, is like, you know, like because the point is, going back to the very issue of like, well, if everything's religious, we're just dogma's religious, this is religious, that's religious. It's like we're just stretching the word so much where it's like everything's religious, and I think it's different from saying underpinning everyone's psychology is this level of religious thinking. Like maybe an analogy is like, what's the Marxist perspective on how material conditions shape everything? It's kind of like saying like, well, wait, Marx says that everything is economics, everything is material conditions. It's like that's ridiculous. It's like, well, it's not just that like everything is material conditions. It's everything is influenced by this process of the material dialectic, and we're saying everything is influenced by this process of religiosity and these archetypal
Storytelling.
And
themes.
to make
Yeah.
a clarification, because I saw this in chat, if we've been a little
Oh, God.
unclear,
What does chat say?
they're saying something stupid.
Don't look at chat.
Religion,
Don't look at
Kinda
chat.
losing it.
religiosity.
You're losing the debate.
I
That's what's
know, but
happening.
it's in the. I got the comments on. Religiosity is not something.
I'll
It's
fight
not
you up.
purely irrational. If you go off
Come at
the,
me, chat.
so let's use this definition of faith. It is a intelligent belief in something unknown.
Chat says fuck you.
I know they're stupid. That's
Oh,
why they
no.
don't learn, and they're memeing right now.
Okay. All right.
And-
Look.
but
thought we were
but
winning.
anyway, let's continue. You cannot prove religiosity through empirical methods alone. You have some sort of empiricism that you can utilize in religion, which is why you can have Paul articulate all his points and Prime agree, because he is using a rational framework. and you,
how do
you have
arrive at
conceded
secular belief?
this multiple times in this argument.
But
so I'm just like,
that doesn't
if
mean
you
that
are
religion is
stuck-
using
that's what I'm saying.
empiricism.
Wait, all right. I want to
Religious
ask
well-
Wick. I want to ask Wick.
Well, this
right,
is what
Wick.
I'm making the clarification. Religion is
Wait,
not
yeah,
just
wait.
because we've gotten stuck on the word irrational, and
Wait,
we're
how can-
saying that
wait, how-
religion
how
is
can you
purely
arrive?
irrational, it's purely mysticism, it's purely magic.
Spoon. I got it, Spoon. We got to hurry it up.
Wick,
You're
how can you
gonna
arrive at
Prime.
secular belief?
Come on, bro. This
How
is what
can
I'm
you
talking.
arrive at
Don't-
secular belief? Like,
Spoon!
what is a secular belief to you?
Can you repeat that? Please. I'm sorry. I can't-
How can you arrive at a secular belief? Like, what is a secular belief to you? If you believe like any kind of sort of like,
So secular
sort of
thinking?
like, yeah, what is it? Like,
Okay, so
how do you arrive
secular
at secular
thinking
belief?
was what I would consider when you look at the evidence and you arrive at a conclusion, and that
Yeah,
your
but that evidence, you just have to
your
accept the evidence
fundamentalist
is
nature,
true, right?
your like your storytelling, you avoid that. You actively avoid that. And the problem is, what I've been seeing is that a lot of you on this panel, a lot of people in chat, fuck chat. No, I love you, chat. I'm sorry, but a lot of them have been like they've been using their framework, their worldview, their foundational worldview, and it has like again fundamentally led their thought patterns down a way that is very specific. It's religious thinking. It's storytelling. We all have that. That's not necessarily bad. We all do it to some extent. We all do it to some extent.
So you can't.
It's
So
human nature.
whoa.
This is all my point.
You
Sneaky,
can't
sneaky,
think
this is my point.
secularly
This
if
is
everybody
you.
story tells them.
That humans.
if he's answering your question, you,
that
come on.
humankind, that we are storytellers,
You
and we
contradicted
can
yourself.
never, and that's naturally going to lead to religion.
So you
Whether
contradicted
we
yourself.
acknowledge it or not, that many of our beliefs, mine, yours, everyone's here's, everyone that's ever been born and ever will be born, has certain belief structures that are arrived at through storytelling and magical thinking. Thus, we can never eliminate religion entirely from our society.
If
Yeah,
you don't concede this,
not
you're,
only,
being,
right,
you're
you
not being
under-
charitable.
Okay,
If you don't
fine.
concede
Okay,
that
fine,
point,
fine.
you're not being charitable.
Fine, I can concede that. It doesn't matter, right? But the point is,
Well, it does. That's the
you
question of the topic.
you-
That's the panel's
you-
topic.
So then if you
And you wrote
concede
religious
that,
so
religion
much.
from
Fucking shut the fuck
humanity.
up.
No, you can't.
Right, so
Answer,
you
done.
believe
Panel over.
that like secularism is like secular thinking. Secularism is not is impossible, right? Because
No.
we'll always add stories
No,
to like
obviously not.
religiosity.
No, obviously not.
Well, you just said that.
Obviously, no, I didn't. You see, this is this fundamental misunderstanding of what I'm saying.
you verbatim.
I am saying that many of you, like many of your beliefs, not all of your beliefs, many of your beliefs, but not all of your beliefs. This absolutist take, like when I say many, I mean all. I do not mean all. I said
repeat
many
you
of your
verbatim.
beliefs are arrived at through storytelling and religious thinking. Not all. You can. I'm doubly sure that mine, yours, Prime's, everyone on here have arrived have arrived into many of their beliefs through purely secular reasoning and logic. My point is that not all of yours will. No, it's just impossible. That's not how humans work.
So you think now storytelling is religiosity?
Storytelling leads to religiosity. Yes, storytelling
think-
leads to religiosity.
So you think you cannot have like stories without them being religious?
Oh, they will
that.
eventually like it.
Lead does
leads
not
to-
mean.
Yeah, it doesn't automatically become religious. Does that make sense?
They're archetypal. They draw
Yes.
on
So
the
they-
structure
so-
of
so-
religious thinking.
So you could have like a purely secular belief system, right? If you don't
No,
believe,
you can't.
if these stories that you have do not lead to religion.
No, you just can't. No one. I have never met anyone that has a purely secular. They may think they do. They may tell themselves they do.
Yeah, I think we
But
should use
everyone has certain
rational instead of
beliefs.
secular. Purely rational.
Yeah, mhm.
Okay.
You can't have
fair
a
enough.
purely rational
I
Yes,
agree with that.
exactly.
story framework.
Yeah.
Well, that's the
And,
same
and
thing.
why
Based
are we
upon what
fighting
we
against
said,
this?
it's the same thing.
Why
Based
are we
upon
fighting
what we
against?
have
Not the
agreed
same
on.
thing.
So how's
As
that
you
different?
Why are
How's
we
that
fighting against this concept? It's not a bad thing. It's not a terrible
Rationality
thing.
isn't the same as religion.
Oh my
different? You're
God.
being dogmatic.
Ev-
Like
every-
this is very
everything is
dogmatic
religion,
right now,
everything is
which
religion.
is crazy.
Okay, we got it. All right, look. We're at the end. Oh my God, mercifully. So
There he goes again. Asking
there
God.
you go. So
Sorry.
to my audience, we're gonna continue on with this content, right? We're gonna continue on. We're the open welcome panel, right? So our audience members like you, yes, you sitting at home may participate. So stick around. around for that. We'd love to have you. There's more content after this. No need to leave, right? We are going to give an outro to these people. Before that, make sure you get your follow to the channel, right? Make sure you hit that follow button. If you're new here, hit that follow button. Make sure notifications are on so you know I'm going live. !social and chat for our social media. We have Twitter. We'll retweet things, right? We have Discord where everything happens, including Open Walk On panel. So jump into our Discord, be a part of the community. We'd love to have you. And YouTube, if you missed anything, and that might be for the best. Like, comment, and subscribe on the YouTube channel. And consider becoming a YouTube member, hitting that join button, supporting us that way. Helps us out a ton. All right, I'm going to give an outro to all these amazing individuals, and we will continue on to that Open Walk On panel with more content. All right, we'll start with my man, Sneaky Debate Man. All right, Spoon. Look, let me tell you how I feel about this guy Spoon, right? Like, if it just had been me and Spoon versus 7 pro-religious people, I'd be good. That's all I need.
Easy.
I need I need Spoon in my bag, and I'm good, right?
It's like Dale. It's like biggest Dale.
So,
Yeah, all right, everything is meaningless. Nothing matters, but that doesn't mean you can't enjoy things. You don't need a purpose, okay? Just enjoy whatever your brain produces in the moment, okay? It's fucking great. That's how I live. And I'm fucking awesome, man. I'm fucking so happy. I got a hot girlfriend. I'm really attractive. I live in a nice house. My life is amazing, man. I don't fucking care about all this religious shit. You're just aspiring to be like me, okay? I'm fucking great, all right? I'm not just like a little bit good. I'm fucking amazing, okay? I'm like off the charts good, okay? And I don't give a fuck about anything. Only the things that I
forgot how much you hate this guy. Go ahead. Yeah.
Exactly. I care about them because I don't know. I just do, right? It's not rational. At least I don't believe like some fucking like man in the sky or some cosmic entity fucking ordains them to be correct, right? Fucking Wick thinks everything's fucking religion. As he thinks religion is correct, but doesn't want people to believe it because that would be like bad, right? For some reason, right? Paul, I didn't even know what fucking Paul is. I asked you.
I have no idea what you're saying.
No, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
This is the craziest thing.
This is his outro. Go ahead.
I asked you, like, why don't you want your fucking, like, beliefs enshrined? Why don't you want society to operate on your beliefs? And you're like, oh, because, like, drinking water is, like, bad for you if you drink too much water. Some shit like that, all right? Beliefs are trash. I'm fucking amazing. Peace.
Okay. All right. Azzy, thanks for also for being here. Azzy is he's a special bird here, right? There's you're unique, one of a kind. Azzy, thank you for coming here. And getting my blood pressure up
thing,
as always.
Honestly, if you believe any of these secular promoting people gave any type of actually good argument, like if you truly believe that, I'm praying for you because you are lost, bro. For real. That was the craziest thing. People whining over being cut off as they cut off into other individuals, which is crazy to me. Like, the religious side, trying to be as good as faith as possible and provide, like, really rhetorically empirical arguments, but yet people still are, like, falling back on this stupid stuff that is, like, antiquated. It just shows me that you guys don't know what you're talking about. You're not up to date on any type of religiosity or any type of actual up-to-date definitions. Like, we fought over mythos. That's crazy to me. This, like, low-hanging fruit. So, like, if you want to rely on strawmans, if you're going to rely on cutting off people and just being bad faith, it's just like, why have a conversation at that point? Let's just meme. Like, let's just meme at that point, you know? Like we said, nobody here was saying you can't have a secular aspect of society. No one was saying that. Nobody's saying get rid of a religion. Nobody was saying that. Let me know if I'm breaking up. Am I still good?
You're good.
My audio still good? In our intros was the best part of the conversation. Just go back to the intros. All right, YouTube, go back to the intros because everything was made clear there. And then everything went to crap. Because people, I will not name, did not listen to anything, and they kept saying stupid stuff over and over and over again, like we didn't already deal with it. So, like, I love y'all. God bless y'all, and live your lives the way you want to. You know, we're praying for the people in Ukraine, praying for people in Russia. Those situations are truly tragic, and we're just. I am fully convinced that there will be a better outcome at the end of time. Appreciate y'all. Don't follow me if you agree with Sneaky or Ashley, because I don't want you in my space. Please.
Wow.
I don't want you in my space. You will distress me out, and I will die an early death.
Okay.
Thank you.
Wow. Look, because Ashley was just slandered there, right? Ashley.
I wasn't slandered. I like Ashley. It's just like, if you agree with her, that's terrible.
Ashley. Oh God. Ashley, please. Thank you for coming through. It was really nice having you on, right? You're a pleasure to be around. I like your energy. So Ashley, thank you so much, and we definitely want to have you again in the future. Please tell the world about yourself.
Well, thank you so much. I didn't think I'd have to call upon my flat Earth debating days here, but I clearly did. I'm glad that I've engaged in so many of them. I stream sometimes on my handle Luxa Legend. I've talked in the chat a bit. Yeah, I mean, I don't even know what to say. I mean, this was an adventure. You will.
Oh God!
I charge for this.
And
Anyone who says "ooh," I just don't trust. I'm
and
sorry.
that's good.
I like y'all as human beings, but
That's-
if you say "ooh," woo,"
All right, all right, we can agree on that one. We can go on that one. All right, I'll go to Wick next. Wick, you know I love you. All right, despite the fact that.
Like, look, I just want to make sure that the people who agree with Sneaky and Ashley know that there's a place for you in my community. I like my ideas being challenged. I think it's a good thing. I think the only way we can come to something closer to the truth is to engage with each other in an honest manner and try to understand what we're trying to say. So I think that most of the problem tonight came because there is this refusal to define religion other than this very narrow lens. When I think that's just unhelpful, I think we can use religion and religious ways of thinking, and we can broaden our definition, and it is more helpful because it explains humans' behavior. It explains and predicts human behavior, and that's a great thing. Look, you can disagree with me, and that's fine. I am not ever 100% certain on what I believe. Death of Certainty is my channel. This is where you can find me, twitch.tv/Death of Certainty. I have people who disagree with me all the time. Monday, I'm going to have Katie and a few others on to talk about systems versus individuals and how best to address subjects, whether we should tackle problems on a systemic level, or we should tackle problems on an individual level, or what is the balance between the two. I think it's going to be a great discussion. I encourage you all to show up Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern. Please come support the channel, even if you hate me. You can yell at me for my bad takes. I think I should probably make a segment where people can call in and just yell at me for an hour about why I'm wrong. I think that'd be popular.
Charge for that.
So yeah,
I think you make a lot of money. All right, let's go to my man, Paul. Paul, it was very nice to meet you. Very nice to interact with you. I most definitely want to have you back here again, right? And maybe even doing a one-on-one with you. I think we could have a really good conversation, right?
Heck yeah.
Especially if there's no interruptions. I don't know. I don't know where that might come from, but any which way. But Paul, this was a great time, at least for me, and I hope you had a great time here as well.
Definitely.
Yeah. Tell a little about yourself.
Yes. Well, I really appreciate it. I enjoy this. And I don't know how much progress we made in the grand history of philosophy on this debate, but every little bit counts. So I really appreciate it. Yeah. For anyone. I imagine most people watching this probably don't have the most high opinions of what we were saying and whatnot, but I do try my best on my YouTube channel to take literal excerpts from lectures, online lectures, Robert Sapolsky, Jordan Peterson, all these different people, and then I cut them up and I'll do watch a video of Vosh and explain, well, Vosh is actually a postmodern neo-Marxist. So I'm trying to take these very abstract ideas that we are definitely disagreeing on and stretching, but trying to apply them sort of in real life examples that people might be familiar with. So maybe some people enjoy, maybe not, but either way, I really do appreciate you having me. It was fun.
Absolutely. Okay, we will continue on to our open walk-on Panelists. Oh, could you throw your link in the chat? For some reason I can't find it right now. Paul, if you could, so people can find you.
My YouTube channel?
Yeah, please.
Yes, sure.
Yeah. Everyone go, please go check them out. And everyone else here. Okay, yeah, we're going to continue on to our open walk on panel right after this. Anyone here is welcome to join us, but if not, that's okay. Thank you for spending your time, your energy, your knowledge, and your passion, and your rationality, and your religion with us all. I know my audience appreciates just as much as I do. Have a good one. Bye.